Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 a.m., and the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, the Honorable Mayor Karen K. Go.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order the 5:15 City Council meeting of April 10th, 2019. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Go, before I call the roll, I would like to announce that the new business item 13A has been pulled from tonight's agenda by request of staff.
Thank you.
Mayor Go,
Here.
Vice Mayor Parlier,
Here.
Councilmember Rivera,
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Here.
Councilmember Weir, Councilmember Smith,
I am here.
Councilmember Freeman,
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan. Here.
Thank you. Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's great to see so many people engaging in the civic process. We have the privilege tonight of having Pastor Tim Grace, Senior Pastor and Senior Tim Grace from Pleasant View Church, lead us in the invocation. I am so grateful for the wonderful music in our community, and for those of you, if you ever want to enjoy a fantastic music service, go to Pastor Graves' church. After Pastor Graves prays, we have the pleasure of a scout leading us in the invocation. Isaac Pisano is a sixth grader at St. Francis Parish School, and he is a fantastic student. When Isaac was 5, he was diagnosed with brain cancer. And out of that, he created Team Isaac, which is a fundraising group that helps those who are in need and who are also fighting the battle of cancer. And this young man has raised somewhat in the vicinity of not $25, not $2,500, but $25,000 to help others. That is amazing. And most recently, his community service project funds for other cancers pay rent, and that's remarkable. So first we'll have Pastor Grace and then Mr. Pisano. Would you all please stand?
Will you please bow your heads as I pray? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you on the behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. I pray for our mayor and for the various levels of the city officials, and in particular for this assembly and the council. As we surrender ourselves in this adoration to you, Lord, we ask your Holy Spirit to inspire our hearts today. Fill our lives with your love. Fill our conversation with your grace and truth. Fill this meeting with your presence. We ask this for your glory and your praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Grace. Isaac?
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. And Isaac, just come back up here one more time and tell us, what is the badge that you're working towards right now?
So the badge I'm working on is citizenship in the community. So one of the requirements are to come to a council meeting or any type of meeting and just talk and write about what they were talking about on the paper. And that next is citizenship in the nation. And
Very good. Well, thank you for being a good citizen. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Proclamation to Jelani Polk, Ambassador for the One Legacy Foundation, declaring DMV Donate Life California Month during April 2019.
Imagine if you needed an organ donation and there was no one. Well, we are so fortunate in this community to have those who have stepped up and chosen to donate life. They have made the difference in so many different lives, not just one life, but many. One organ donation can make a difference in so many different families. And so it's my honor today to be able to proclaim the following. Whereas more than 114,000 individuals nationwide are on a transplant waiting list, and on average, 20 people die each day while waiting due to a shortage of donated organs, and whereas more than 600,000 units of blood per year are needed to meet the needs in California, and at any given time, 6,000 patients are in need of volunteer marrow donations, and whereas a single individual's donation of organs can save up to 8 lives, and donation of tissue can save and heal the lives of more than 75 others. And whereas a single blood donation can help 3 people in need of blood, and whereas over 14 million Californians have signed up with the state-authorized Donate Life California Donor Registry. Now, therefore, I, Kern Go, Mayor of the City of Bakersfield, do hereby proclaim April 2019 as DMV Donate Life California Month in our city, and encourage all Bakersfield residents to check yes when applying or renewing their driver's license or ID. And it's my honor to be able to present this to you, Mr. Jelani. Thank you so much. Thank you for all that you do, and you'll get to introduce your guests here.
Thank you, Mayor Go and City Council members. My name is Jelani Polk. I'm a 2-time transplant recipient. This is also a fellow ambassador, Raymond. He's a liver recipient, I believe.
Double lung transplant.
A double lung, I apologize.
Okay.
Double lung. He's very, very special. As ambassadors, we are tasked with informing and educating the public about organ, eye, and tissue donation. What that really means is we have to equip the public with tools to have a very uncomfortable conversation. And what that means is to become a registered donor means to, when we no longer need these gifts, that we would pass them on to someone else to allow them to continue living. Mayor Grove mentioned some pretty startling statistics about 114 people who are currently, 114,000 people, excuse me, who are currently on the wait list for a life-saving transplant. Every day, more than 20 of those people pass away waiting for these life-saving organs. Every 10 minutes, someone is also added to that list. I'll give you but there's one statistic that's really important. Recently, I had the privilege of speaking for the donor families here in Kern County. At the event, the banquet was pretty packed like this was. Unfortunately, that wasn't even half of the families that were being represented there. It was my job as a recipient to provide words of gratitude from a recipient. I didn't speak about how it has impacted my life. I spoke more to how the years of my life have been used contributing to the community and affecting change. More importantly, I made sure that they understood that even though their loved ones were no longer here, that they still had a voice and they still had a champion who would go out and speak for them so that their memory would live on. Your proclamation proclaiming that April is DMV Donate Life Month, it gives that lost voice life again. It also gives those family members another reason to smile, even though they may not want to. Thank you, Mayor Go, and thank you, City Council members, for proclaiming April as the Donate Life Month. Thank you. I forgot to mention these are my sons. I call them my security team, but.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and say that if you want?
I also brought all the city members a little Donate Life swag. There's a little gift in here for you. I'll leave it with the clerk so she can give that to you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Polk. You are on TV. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Recognition of Anthony Gonzalez, Human Resources Supervisor, honoring 31 years of service to the city of Bakersfield.
Yes, Mr. Gonzalez. Yeah. 31 years. How does somebody do 31 years? Wow, that is amazing. 31 years, Human Resources Division as a personnel analyst and as a Human Resources Supervisor. That's over 3 decades of hard work, dedication, and everyone who's worked with you, Anthony, says that you're an outstanding supervisor, you love spending time with your family, little golf, and telling jokes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. And so we are delighted as the City of Bakersfield to recognize your outstanding service to us, 31 years. We wish you all the best as you go forward, and happy playing golf. It's my pleasure to present this to you. Here we go. Oh, you've got a lot of pins. And we'll put one over there.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and council members. First of all, I'd like to thank my life role models. My mom and dad are here. I also have my wife, Arlene, my son, and my daughter, Erin and Aubrey, in the back. Thank you for your love and support.
Whoever you called out.
And I have my sister, Heidi, and my goddaughter, Nicole, here for their love and support as well. Mayor, again, 31 years of service to the city of Bakersfield. I was born and raised in Delano, so I've been driving back and forth for the last 31 years. And I tried to calculate the miles, and it's about, it's pretty close to about 500,000 miles. So good thing you guys don't pay me mileage. But anyway, I'd like to thank a couple of staff members. I'd like to thank Jenny, our city attorney, who's always been very supportive and provided guidance to me as an HR supervisor. I also want to thank Steve Teglia. You know, I've worked for 6 different HR managers, and whenever we were recruiting, Steve stepped in and provided leadership to the HR division. So thank you, Steve, very much. And then last, I'd like to thank HR staff. I know they're back there. Yeah, that's them. I'd like to thank the staff very much, and of course, all the department heads and division managers and all employees citywide. Thank you very much tonight, and God bless.
This says, Anthony, gift card inside, so I hope there's something good in here. It's not just an empty box. You'll be really disappointed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Oh. Well, that's exactly what it says. Oh, so you want the notes. Oh, you want those. So HR team, I was told you weren't here. You were supposed to come up and talk. Well, you'll get to tell Anthony outside how wonderful he is. And he is. Thank you all. Oh, good to see our friends from Delano. Thank you for being here. Our city council woman, Grace, thank you for being here. And the Becerras and others, thank you. All right. Madam City Clerk, next item, please.
Public statements.
At this time, we'll receive public statements. All statements are given a 3-minute time limit, 15 minutes per topic. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, please give those to the clerk. She'll give copies to the council. Please avoid any behavior that disrupts the meeting. We're very interested and concerned with your issues. Due to the public notice requirement of the Brown Act, we can't, as a council, take action when an item isn't on the agenda. However, the council can refer your matter to committee or request that staff contact you. If you are here on hearing item 9 or 10, now isn't the time to speak. You'll be given an opportunity later when that item is called. So now, Madam City Clerk, would you please call the first public speaker?
Mayor Go, we have received 16 speaker cards, 2 regarding the new Women's Business Center, 4 regarding a park name, 2 regarding city protection of persons, and 8 regarding separate subjects. The first speaker is Pastor Angelo Frazier.
Thank you. As Pastor had to leave, would you call the next one, please?
Kern Women, speaking on the subject of Kern Women's Business Center, we have Chuck Gill, Program Director, Mission Community Services Corp.
Very good. As he's coming up, let me just welcome the students from CSUB from Cornelia's class and the BC students from Mr. Holmes' class, and also I think we have representatives from some organizations, Arts Council, and the Sikh community. Thank you very much for being here. Welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Chuck Jaley. I'm the Program Director for Mission Community Services in the Women's Business Center. And hello, Madam Mayor and council members. I've met some of you before, and thank you. We are a nonprofit. We're located in San Luis Obispo, but we have been doing work in Kern County and Bakersfield in particular for the last 7 years. And mostly it's been serving the Hispanic market. We do business startup training, we have classes, we have workshops, we have no-cost consulting. And we're very proud of what we've been doing. We've been probably training 150 people each year through that, and we've had great success stories, whether it's in Bakersfield proper or a little bit extended. So we have finally received the funding we needed from a combination of the SBA, Small Business Administration, from this California state. They had some funding that came through this year, and also Citibank as well as Wells Fargo Bank. So we're very pleased to open our Kern Women's Business Center, which is located on 201 Stein Road. And Norma will talk a little bit more about that, but we're very excited about it because now we can teach more classes, we serve more people, and make more of a difference, impact to the local community. And why is this important? We're the Women's Business Center, but we also serve men. And the reason it's so important is women are opening businesses at 1.5 times the rate of men right now. So a lot of them don't have the background, the experience that us guys do. So this is a way to provide that training that's specific. Because without training, they did a study 2 years ago that businesses without technical assistance, which is either consulting or training or classes or workshops, have an 85% chance of being out of business after 3 years. So our goal is to stop that mortality rate. We want everyone to be successful if at all possible. So that's what we do. And the other thing that's interesting with women-owned businesses is that 95% of them are solo entrepreneurs. They're people that, do I get a part-time job that pays $10 an hour, or do I open my own business, live my dream, a passion, and do something while I'm raising the kids, or, do they take the minimum wage job? So here we're helping them make a difference for themselves, their community, and out of that, you see a lot of small businesses grow, and we're hoping to groom some of them to be in the 5% that also own, that are more than just a solo entrepreneur. So we're just here letting you know what we've got going, and also to ask your support as the years go by, because it takes a village, it takes a city to help keep these business centers open. So if there's pockets of funding, please let us know. We'll apply for the CDBG grant again, and we thank the council members for that in the past, if it's available to us. So thank you.
Thank you for
Appreciate your
sharing.
support. All right.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Norma Dunn.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Go and council members. My name is Norma Dunn. I am the Deputy Director for the Kern County Women's Business Center, working on behalf and hosted by Mission Community Services Corporation. As Chuck mentioned, we do help and we focus on helping our community, and we do provide special assistance to women, to low-income, minority, veterans, and nonprofit businesses. And we want to serve here at Kern County. So my job right now is to, again, open the center, which we have. And as he mentioned, we're at 201 Newstein Road, Suite 300, right next to San Joaquin Valley College. And we're actually going to have our grand opening on May the 7th at 2:30. And you're all invited. So this is your invitation, but we will be sending out invitations as well. But what we want to do here is actually educate the community on the business courses that we're going to be offering, which are the workshops for business plans, QuickBooks training. We're going to have even leadership class. We're going to have anything and everything that has to do with the business to help them be successful. As Chuck mentioned, we've been doing in the community having the Spanish classes, and those have been going very well. Our goal is to actually reach the surrounding communities, Taft, Tehachapi, McFarland, Delano, and all the surrounding communities in Kern County. Again, we just have to start here in Bakersfield, and this is what we're looking at. As he mentioned, the entrepreneurial training courses is a 10-week class that we offer to our to the community, our clients, and this helps them with the knowledge that they need to know to start, run, and grow their businesses and scale up. We have the Empezando class is the Spanish class, and the Start, Run, Grow is the English class. The no-cost business consulting that Chuck talked about, we do have, and I'm building my team of consultants. We help with, specifically with, I have a finance consultant, I have a business development, organizational, strategic management. We have individuals that are really specialists in real estate. So when we get a client, not only can we help them in one aspect, but we have other consultants that can help them in others as well. Again, this is no charge to the client. And as Chuck said, we are looking for funding, so in order for us to continue to provide these services at the level that we're offering these services here in Kern County, we are seeking funding. And the other thing that we have is we're going to be developing workshops, both in English and in Spanish, or what we call brown bags, so we can teach different topics to the community about operating their businesses and get speakers from our community and bring individuals in who are professionals who can share their secrets and possibly even mentor some of these clients. With that, I thank you very much for your time. I'm excited about opening this in Kern County, and as a Kern County resident and born and raised in Kern County, I am excited that I'm able to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. And colleagues, Ms. Dunn has cards for us. Next speaker, please.
Matthew Woodman.
I'm David
Welcome.
Gordon, not Matthew Woodman, but I'm about to introduce this tall gentleman. I'm David Gordon, Executive Director of the Arts Council, and keeping with our mission of arts advocacy, access, and education, we have two wonderful things going on in April. The first is the Kern County Plein Air Painting Festival, which I have some catalogs for you, where we have 15 artists painting our wonderful county, and tomorrow they'll be downtown painting downtown Bakersfield, and they'll all be displayed on Saturday, and I have that. But more importantly, April is National Poetry Month, and the Arts Council of Kern, through an incredible committee headed by Portia Choi, we have selected our second county poet laureate, Matt Woodman, who is a professor at Cal State Bakersfield, and we're going to have a reception for him April 25th at the Arts Council of Kern office across the street. And I would like you to preview that reception with an original piece recited by Mr. Woodman.
Thank you, David.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me here. And I'd also like to invite everyone out to CSUB on April 24th. We're going to have a reading featuring poets from across the community, two of whom are beside me now. Shelley Evans and Portia Choi, they will have poems they will be reading there tonight, as well as others from across the community. So I invite everybody to come out on April 24th at 6 o'clock at CSUB, the Walter Stern Library. And so the poem I'd like to read tonight is inspired by Merle Haggard and his song, specifically The Fugitive, in keeping with his recent birthday. and then anniversary of his death. So this poem is kind of about that, his birth and his death. And it starts off with a little epigraph from one of his songs that goes, "I'd like to settle down, but they won't let me. Who wouldn't want to shed their stripes in the shadow of Mount Shasta, the most voluminous stratovolcano astride the Cascade volcanic arc? Of the 5 essential features of the phonograph, Edison opens with captivity and permanent retention of all manner of sound waves previously stamped fugitive, reception as a correlative of regulation, San Quentin, California's oldest prison, and the state's only death row, or former state's death row. Escapes may be divided into voluntary or negligent, actual or constructive, Haggard's parole and then pardon inexorably linked to his band of strangers and the bird's eye maple Fender Telecaster with the 2-tone sunburst finish. To listen is to risk being moved. We are brief engagements of time and pressure in eruptive, ecstatic song. Who wouldn't want to be born in a boxcar? Thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you very much. Give it to the clerk. Plein Air is a great festival to attend. Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Next speaker, please.
Gary Harding.
My name is
Welcome.
Gary Harding. I'm here to talk about police procedure. Yesterday at the GIT bus terminal, a street cop came to settle a disagreement between me and 2 security guards. He was not very polite to me. In fact, he treated me like a common criminal. Then when I tried to explain my side of the story, he refused. He only listened to the security guards because they thought they were right and they told the truth. I could not believe it, so I went to to the complaint station there here at City Hall, and he told me the same thing. This procedure with the police to believe only the security guards. So I left out in the cold. Now I hold no grudge, but I am not too thrilled about the fact that my rights were infringed upon. And I just want to make public note what's going on here. I'm going to contact the chief of police and talk to him, or at least write him, or get somebody to tell me what's going on here, because, like I said, I was left in the cold. They didn't give me a right to explain my side of the story. It's not proper. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Vice Mayor?
Sir? So the chief isn't here tonight, but I tell you what, I'm going to direct you to his surrogate. Is acting in his stead, Captain Matson. If you could just reach out to this gentleman and talk to him a little bit, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The following 4 speakers are speaking on a single subject, park name. The first speaker, Angelina Grove.
Welcome.
Hello. My name is Angeline, and I'm a student organizer with the Jagata movement. And first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for your time. And we request the Bakersfield City Council to reopen the process of naming a park after Shahid Jaswant Singh Kalra, a human rights activist. Renaming this park would not only create a sense of belonging to me, but also to the Sikh community as a whole. It is through this that Bakersfield can help mirror the diversity of its citizens. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing the future of this process.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hardship Singh.
Hi, Marigo. Thank you for giving me your time. My name is Harji, and I'm a student organizer with the Jagata movement, and we request the city of Bakersfield to restart the process of naming a park in the name of the human rights activist Shahid Jaswant Singh Kalra. So many Sikh families have found refuge and safety in Bakersfield because of the work of Shaheed Jaswant Singh Kalra. It would be an honor to show that our great city of Bakersfield has recognized this and honors its diversity. We look forward to working with our respective city council members in moving this initiative forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Next speaker, please.
Nizar Singh Cooner.
Welcome, Mr. Cooner.
Good afternoon, Mayor Go and our respected city council members. These children, teenager students brought this subject 2 years ago to rename Stone Creek Park. It brought big controversy among some citizens and hurt the feeling of them. We back out from that renaming. We respect Stone Creek Park. But there is other land for park, quarter-mile south of Stone Creek Park. And Sikhs are here living very honestly, and they don't have too many demands. But why they want to name Jaswant Singh Kalra? He was a human activist who identified 25,000 teenagers were killed brutally by the police in Punjab. He worked same like Dr. King worked in America. They want to see something their own from India, that this guy, this hero, helped the human. So we request our council members to support us. We will be willing to compensate on naming rights to develop that park as much we can as a community. Chris Parlier, who is working very hard, but he was in a situation that we want to live and let live. We want to cooperate with everybody here. We don't want to hurt the feeling of nobody. So if that park is named after their desire, they will feel good about it and tell we are living in America. We have human rights protected here. And they will remember that gentleman who were also killed by the Punjab police when they knew that he the one identified those dead bodies. 25,000 young people were killed and everybody was unnamed. So this poor person he was a lawyer, he went door to door, find out who was the son of mother, who was the brother of sister. And he put his life, finally they killed him too. In Fresno, they named that park, JSK Park, and it is not something, it is feeling in their heart, and I respect them. They are the future generation. They like to see something their own in their neighborhood where 45,000 Sikhs live. And every third house in Chris's area is Sikh. So this is our humble request to support us to name new park after Jaswant Singh Kalra. Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you,
Mr.
my
Cooner.
dear council members.
Madam City Clerk, next speaker on the same topic.
Yes, last speaker on this topic, Mayor. Avneet Dwar.
Welcome.
I thank everyone who made it possible for me to be here. It's an absolute privilege to be able to address our city's workers and the civic process. So I'm speaking on the park topic, and my name is At Santu. I work with the Jakarta movement as a student organizer. And as a student and as a person in America, I don't often see representation of the Sikh community. And seeing how Bakersfield has been an absolute haven for every Sikh that I've seen around, and seeing how I know people who were affected by the atrocities that happened in India, it'd be our humble request to the city of Bakersfield to reopen the process of renaming the park. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, Mayor. Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody from the Sikh community, the Punjab community, for being here tonight. You are an integral part of the city and of our community, and want to thank you. I think there's a real opportunity for for a park naming, JSK Park, there is a plot of land approximately 300 yards from Stone Creek Park that at some point is going to be built out sometime soon. And this item is currently holding in the Planning and Development Committee. So I would just ask that it is awakened, I guess, within the committee, and that the committee looks at this plot of land, which is at Sierra Madre and Acres, for possible renaming for JSK Park. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Rick Davis.
Welcome, Mr. Davis.
Hello. There we go. And city council members, thank you so much for giving us a few minutes here in your meeting. I'm here on behalf of the Fox Theater and also here, whoops, I guess I should talk closer. I should know that, shouldn't I? And recently you may have seen that the Fox Theater held the world premiere of a Hollywood movie named Oildale. Although the movie is a whole lot more about Bakersfield than it is Oildale. It was a sellout 2 Saturdays ago, and what we are here doing is to let you know that we're going to have an encore performance this weekend at 1 o'clock at the Fox. The movie was shot here and around Bakersfield, and it captures our Bakersfield community spirit and our heart, and it centers around kindness, our veterans, their struggles, and their desire to continue and help protect others, even though they're still hurting themselves. In the movie, 3 vets come to the aid of a younger brother, who I'll introduce in just a moment, and sister who are at risk of losing their home in the Oildale oil fields. Just north of town, actually was shot out on Highway 65, just a little ways out of the city limits. And this comes about because the 2 children that live there, a 13-year-old and an 18-year-old, have had to put their World War II grandfather into a rest home. And so the struggle begins to make that house payment, and that's when the veterans come to their aid and rent rooms, and a marvelous family is formed. Multiple scenes were also filmed at the Fox. There was a talent contest which featured some of Bakersfield's finest musicians, and we also were able to shoot scenes up at the Bakersfield National Cemetery. So while most of the cast and crew are from Hollywood, and all of those people came up and stayed in our hotels and ate our food and helped support us during the time they were here, one young actor, this gentleman right here, made his debut in Oildale. He survived the casting call in Southern California and became one of the leads. Our own Caleb Brown plays the character Pete, who along with his sister rent part of their home to the vets to make ends meet. Caleb, who is now a freshman at Frontier High, would like to share with you just a little bit about what his acting debut was like and how the kind of fun he had playing Pete. So please, Caleb.
Hi, I'm Caleb Brown. Oh, sorry. I'm Caleb Brown, and I played the role of Pete Toft in the movie Oildale. It was an exciting experience to work with all the professional actors and getting to see how movies work. And I just had a really good time. And if you haven't seen the movie already, we're showing it again at the Fox Theater on Saturday at 1 p.m. So it would be really cool if you guys could come out to support it. Thank you.
You do a better job of
Thank you,
spelling than
Caleb.
me, I tell you. You notice Caleb has an iPad. I still use paper, so I think that's a statement, you know. So I'd like to invite the council and, of course, our entire community to come and join us at the Fox Theater this Saturday at 1 for the encore performance. It's a good deal. Tickets are only $10, and this is a chance to see a world-class Hollywood-produced movie, and you'll recognize so many of the scenes. It's a movie that captures Bakersfield's spirit and the willingness to care for others. It's a family movie with family violence, sorry, no gunshots, no car crashes, just people helping people and that spirit of love. We want to thank you and hope you can join us at the Fox this Saturday. Doors open at noon, and the movie will start at 1 o'clock, and we hope to see you there. And Caleb, thank you. You did a marvelous job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Jamie Watkins.
Thank you, Isaac. All the best with your scouts. Welcome.
Welcome. Or thank you. Good evening, Mayor Go and council members. My name is Jamie Watkins, and I'm here from an organization called CFAC, Construction Industry Force Account Council. We are a nonprofit dedicated to create more transparency and job opportunities in the construction industry. How we do this is by monitoring agencies and making sure they're complying with the public contract code. How do agencies comply with the code? They do this by bidding public work projects over a certain bidding threshold. Even though we represent the construction industry, we can also be a resource to agencies when you have questions about bid splitting, change orders, advertising, and use of force account. We also encourage agencies to join CUCA and become signatory. CUCA stands for California Uniform Construction Cost Accounting Act. I understand Bakersfield is a charter law city, but you are still able to join this, of course. I have some information regarding the act. Basically, it was enacted back in 1983. The premise of the act is to promote uniformity of the cost accounting standard and bidding procedures, and it allows agencies to raise force account limits. Some advantages of joining the act: of course, more transparency, more leeway to speed up project completion, eliminates the red tape related to bidding projects, and it benefits contractors because it means more public work projects are put out to bid. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. I handle the southeastern area, which is Kern, Inyo, Mono, and San Bernardino County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watkins. And next speaker, please.
Pastor Max Van Dyke.
Welcome, Pastor. Maybe go ahead and raise the mic a little. Thank you.
Here we go. Okay. Thank you, Mayor Go and council members. I'm here to speak in regards to property that was seized, specifically some crosses that was seized off of public property on April 1st. You know, the cross represents hope, help, and healing to a broken world. And our city and those of us in our city observe many people standing on public land, on medians, holding signs that most of the time are not telling the truth. Yet, we are not allowed a cross on public lands by which all the time tells the truth. And the question is, what's wrong with the cross? Why is there an offense with the cross? I want to share with you just a couple things real quick. The offense of the cross first lies in the way that it deals with human wisdom. A philosopher looks back and tilts his glasses and makes snide comments, don't see anything wonderful in it and that, and says that a simpleton can understand the cross. But there's another offense beyond wisdom, and it's an offense which is a sore one, because it doesn't recognize the distinction between mankind. The cross makes moral and immoral persons go to heaven by the same road. The cross makes rich and poor enter heaven by the same door. And the cross makes philosopher and peasant walk on the same highway to holiness. The cross procures the same crown for the poor creature with 1 talent and the man with 10 talents. There's also something that the cross of Christ, which hurts men's pride even more than this, and it's opposed to the notion of human ability. Man who is relying on himself for salvation in his own strength does not like the doctrine of the cross. But I'm going to tell you what is the favorite plan employed today in regards to the cross. It's not to oppose the cross, but to wind around the cross, to try to reshape the cross and alter it. Men who hate doctrines of the cross say we too preach the gospel. They alter it. They misshape it. They make it another gospel, which is not another. Let others say, if they will, that yes and no can meet together, that fire and water can kiss each other, that Christ and Baal can be twins. But the true minister of Jesus Christ cannot do that. Truth is truth, and whatever is the opposite of it cannot be truth. So the cross has a right to speak silently, clearly, and loudly. This is a freedom of speech issue as much as anything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pastor. Next speaker, please.
Rob DeChow.
Welcome.
Hey. Good evening, Mayor Go, Vice Mayor Parlier, City Council members. My name is Rob Duco. I'm the Public Affairs Manager for Southern California Gas Company here in Kern County. SoCal Gas distributes natural gas to about 1/3 of Bakersfield, about 35,000 homes and businesses, mostly north of Ming Avenue and west of the 99 freeway, while the rest of the city is served in its natural gas by PG&E. I was here last October to tell you, and I'm here again tonight to remind you, that the state legislature and state agencies are increasingly proposing legislation and regulations eliminating choice of energy by mandating technologies to power buildings and public and private fleets as a strategy to achieve state climate goals. We all know clean, affordable, and reliable energy is crucial to the material health, safety, and well-being of residents, particularly the most vulnerable who live on fixed incomes, including the elderly and working families who are struggling financially. The fact is, building and vehicle technology mandates eliminate local control and customer choice, suppress innovation, reduce reliability, and unnecessarily increase costs for all residents and all businesses. I've talked to some of you since I was here in October, and some of you, when I talked to you, asked what you could do in this regards. And to answer this, I would invite the City Council to adopt a resolution that supports balanced energy solutions that maintain decision-making authority and allow for all technologies and energy sources. And I have more information for you available if you are interested.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Duco.
very much.
Vice Mayor.
Well, when I think of natural gas, I think of clean energy. In fact, on the way into the council meeting tonight, I was parked at a stoplight next to a GET bus, and what did it say? Clean energy vehicle, powered by CNG, which is natural gas. And I believe we have several heavy equipment vehicles within Public Works that are also powered by CNG, or clean natural gas. So I would direct staff to come back with a resolution for balanced energy solution in support of our natural gas industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Melissa Pena.
Welcome.
Hello, good evening. This is my first time here. I'm really excited. Thank you so much that I have an opportunity. What I came to speak on behalf of is something you'll probably hear about later from my brothers and sisters, and also going off of what our pastor here was talking about, the cross. So in recent days, we were part of the pro-life movement, and there was a little bit of harassment from some cops. What I just came to say is I took time out of my day. I want to come defend and also show my support for my brothers and sisters here that have been shown this, because freedom of expression is granted in the First Amendment, and we have been limited to how much expression we can give. Given it's a controversial topic, I understand that, but I think most of us that are here for the pro-life movement want to express that this is not just about not being able to have our crosses up, not being able to silently petition with our rosaries, with silent prayer, with counseling women who might be making a tough decision in a very delicate time, but this is more personal for us. It's about being able to express how we feel about such a topic where we feel that innocent children who have not been born do not have anyone to advocate for them. And so I just want to express my support to my brothers and sisters, who you'll hear from a little bit later today, that we are granted the right to petition peacefully through the First Amendment. And we cannot forbid that with such regulations as you will hear and that you will receive information from in regards to municipal courts, codes that we were alleged to be breaking. And that, I don't know if you're going to be making any decisions on this evening in regards to what happened between the cops and those who were outside praying, but what I do want to challenge is, in what ways did we infringe any of the codes that were allegedly violated? Did this affect anyone in particular other than those who were petitioning, other those who were praying outside? And if we did, I want to know what those examples are, if there's any evidence, because I don't think there's any evidence. And in order for something to be contested and for it to be fought against, I think we need sufficient evidence to show that we, without a doubt, were harassing people, that we, without a doubt, were doing something that was against our First Amendment rights. And so my last thought is, I'm very passionate about this, and I know that most of us that are out there praying are. We're not afraid to be harassed. We're not afraid to go against the social norms, because for us, it's not just fighting for someone or for a woman's rights or for something delicate that's, really controversial right now, but it's about the child inside. We personally, I've had someone in my family, a little boy who's 3 years old, who's the joy and the love of my life, who was almost aborted. So to say that he is dispensable it's atrocious to me, and that's why I ask that you please hear and consider what my other brothers and sisters with the pro-life movement have to say in regards to our crimes on April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pena. Next speaker, please.
The next two speakers are speaking regarding city protection of persons. The first speaker, Terry Palmquist.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Go and council members. And just almost 40 days, I came here and thanked you for how you have, the police department and everyone has treated us very well out at the abortion chamber as we had our 11th year of being out there for 40-day prayer vigils. And I showed you what life meant. I gave you each a model. And I would just like to ask you, each one of you, when did you become a person? Do you become a person once you live in a real house? Or do you become a person when you're in the womb? And we all have seen memorials for people that have died. When someone gets shot, we put up crosses. We have memorials, we have candles, we have people that continue to go out there. Well, God, in God we trust. His word says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. That's a person. You each became you in your mother's womb. So when these persons are being mutilated in our city, which we have the power, and we're asking you guys to please look and do something about it. But if you have to allow the business to be here, can't you at least allow the memorials that we have for these babies? In God we trust. Do you trust God that His word is true and that we are persons? If so, do you value a person in the arms more than the baby in the womb? These crosses represent the babies that are dying on 25th and H. And these crosses were taken down from city property, and we and the babies in the womb are being bullied by family planning associates and by the code enforcement, which, by the way, They don't control you. You guys are their boss. Don't hide behind code enforcement. And please, let us put these back up. In memory, today, at least 10 or 15 babies died at 25th and H.
Thank you, Ms. Palmquist. Next speaker, please.
On the same subject, Tim Palmquist.
Welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. My name is Tim Palmquist, and I am here to express my shock and dismay that we even have to be having this conversation right now. These things were not done in a corner. Every one of you knows we came here on the very first day of the 40 days to tell each one of you exactly what our plans were. It's the same thing that we have been doing since 2008, twice a year for 40 days. And yet, when somebody who doesn't even live in Bakersfield, somebody who I believe has never even spent a night in Bakersfield, somebody who doesn't even live in Kern County, somebody whose occupation is to manage a business whose lifeblood is taking the lifeblood from Bakersfield's greatest resource. You yourself have said so many times over the years, Council, our greatest resource is our children. And yet you're going to say that a business, whose business, is stealing the lifeblood from Bakersfield children, that when they complain to you, when they're the only ones that complain to you, Council, you are going to say that the citizens of Bakersfield have less rights to the public lands than a business whose business is taking away the lifeblood from our children. It's just wrong, and you know it's wrong. But it's not just wrong because I say it's wrong. You received a letter from our attorney on Friday, April the 5th. Allison Aranda with Life Legal Defense Foundation. I will give copies to the city clerk in case any of you have not seen this. But this makes it very clear, black and white, that what we're talking about here is the exercise of our constitutional rights, especially those memorial crosses. This is not negotiable. If you're not going to allow us, the citizens of Bakersfield, to put up crosses on public lands in memory of people who were killed, take down that sign. It's meaningless. Without the cross, that's meaningless. You, the city, do not own public lands. They're public lands. The staff doesn't own public lands. Do your job. Protect the public. We are the public. We are the citizens of Bakersfield. And we are here because the lifeblood is being stolen from our fellow citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Palmquist. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I think that we always try and want to protect the sensitivities of our citizens. And, I don't know, maybe we did everything by the book, and maybe we didn't. I'm not sure, but I'm going to ask the city attorney's office to reach out and just have a follow-up discussion with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consent calendar items 8A through 8AN for approval. Mayor, we've received a staff memorandum requesting 8H be removed from the agenda.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Does any council member wish to recuse themselves from an item? Does any council member wish to remove a consent item for separate consideration? I've been provided a card from Councilmember Rivera that he would like to remove items AI, AJ, AK, AL, AM, and AN as in Nancy. With the exceptions of the items that have been pulled, along with the noted agenda corrections by the city clerk, I request that consent items 8A through 8AN for approval. So I make a motion, Your Mayor.
I think you mean AH as in horse, correct?
Correct.
You have a motion? Please cast your votes. And just a reminder, press the button one time. When you do it twice, it cancels it out. So it needs just a minute to register. Well, confirm, right, but don't just keep tapping.
A motion is approved with Councilmember Ken Weir absent.
Right. Staff AH, Mr. Telia, do you wish to comment?
I
Or
think
was
Mayor-
it totally deleted, removed from today?
Ron.
Excuse me, I think we made a motion and you just approved consent calendar items all the way up to 8A, H as in horse. Now we're on AI and the items that Councilman Rivera has removed, and so I think you want to turn the mic over to him.
Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. So these items are 1, 2, 3, 4. These are 6 items listed under the Public Safety and Vital Services measure. I asked to pull these because I wanted to make a few comments and then make a motion. So each of these represents a purchase. I did the math, and it's it's $751,000 in total between the 6 items. And you know, part of my frustration, I think, in reviewing all the stuff that's been coming through my mailbox and from staff and others during this Measure N post-adoption kind of phase is that I really think we've got a lot of different siloed discussions occurring. So we have an oversight committee having meetings and reviewing items. We have staff independently developing proposals as they bring us a fiscal year 2020 budget. We had a discussion earlier today about council goals, and that's not done. We had a discussion on March 20th where we appropriated significant resources as a part of Measure N funding. And all of those things, I think, are happening in silos. And I'll be honest, and I will admit, I can't keep track of it. And so when I saw the agenda and I saw that we were spending or approving upwards of $750,000 worth of purchases, I stopped and I checked in with staff to kind of find out what it was about. And I guess what procedurally speaking or process-wise, I have an issue with the action we're being asked to take tonight on these items, because we haven't had the discussions of what we're going to do with Measure N funding and how that's going to work programmatically. So these purchases are parts of larger goals and initiatives and endeavors this council may or may not decide to venture out on. And I don't think there's a reason to spend nearly $1 million before we have those discussions. So I'd rather delay action on these items until we can kind of get a clearer picture of what we actually want to do. And if it's prioritizing this item and purchasing nearly $1 million worth of equipment for a goal, then so be it. But I'm not comfortable making that decision this evening, and I'd rather get more information, have a clearer understanding of where we're going over the course of the next year, and then better understand how we're going to prioritize Measure N funding. So that hasn't occurred. I don't believe it's occurred, and I would move that we delay action on items AI, AJ, AK, AL, AM, and A as in AN as in Nancy. Thank you.
Do you have any comments on that? I don't see any speakers yet. All right, go ahead and. Councilmember Freeman.
Just a clarification. What action takes these out of a state of delay? Is this until the final budget's approved, until we've had a presentation from staff on these items? Is there some action that that can be taken for us to consider these? Just what's the end point here? We'll delay until when? Just, can you clarify that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should have a conversation about our goals, our priorities, and I think we should approve a budget that includes funding for the programs that would be utilizing this equipment. We haven't done that yet. I don't feel comfortable buying equipment for a program I haven't thoroughly vetted yet or as a council approved.
Okay. Until we've approved a budget including the expenditure of Measure N funds, I think is what you're saying.
Yes. So, and I'll clarify, because at the March 20th meeting, the council did appropriate dollars, and you appropriated dollars in this current fiscal year based on money we'll collect before the end of this fiscal year. But you're purchasing equipment for programmatic things that won't be funded until the next year, and we haven't approved those yet. So it seems to me we're putting the cart before the horse, and I'd rather be fully informed, know what I'm paying for before I decide to purchase the tools to get it done.
Councilmember Smith, do you have anything further? Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Freeman. No. Anything further? Councilmember, Assistant Manager Talia, would you like to clarify?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Just to provide a little bit of background on the item before you, and I think Councilmember Rivera actually summed it up accurately. At the last meeting on March 20th, the staff brought forward an expenditure plan for the first quarter's revenue, which is happening in the current fiscal year, which was brought to the Oversight Committee and then brought subsequently to the Council, which included several different items and expenditures, partly $12 million for the Fiscal Stability Reserve, additional funding for the police training facility retrofit, and then additional monies that were to be allocated for early acquisition of equipment related to programs that will be developed and coming forward in the next fiscal year, and staff has plans to bring those presentations forward through the budget process. So the items before you tonight are the follow-through with the approval that was carried out by council at the last meeting. It allows staff to move forward and acquire the equipment because there are some lead times with some of the different pieces of equipment that we envision using with the programs. Several of them have to do with the rapid response teams regarding homelessness, and there's a couple related to animal control. So I just wanted to give that background so it was clear in terms of the sequencing of actions that took place between March 20th and then tonight's requested action. And Public Works Director Fiddler may have some additional information to offer related to the potential impact of delaying the acquisition of these specific pieces of equipment, and also I'll defer to him on that.
Honorable Mayor and council members, based off of that March 20th meeting, staff did go work with a local vehicle dealers to set up arrangements to acquire these pieces of equipment. So we have This resolution is these resolutions are to dispense with bidding based off of those potential acquisitions of that equipment. Now, postponing this acquisition or this resolution could really defer the ability to get these pieces of equipment up to 6 months for some pieces of the equipment. So the delay of this action could result in a significant delay in receiving that equipment for the new services that are proposed for next fiscal year.
Just a point of clarification on that. On some of those items, it says this vehicle is immediately available.
That is correct. They are immediately available because the dealers are holding them for us. If this action doesn't occur tonight, they will no longer hold that vehicle. We are pulling vehicles off the lot. So there are a 2019 vehicle. Once that vehicle is gone, it's a potential we have to wait till the next years of vehicles come out, which is typically September, October time frame.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no doubt in my mind that going forward with this is what the community voted for with Measure N. As the mayor stated earlier, homeless problems are the #1 issue in the community at this time, and to move forward as rapidly as possible with trying to address that issue is in the best interest of the community and what the community gave us direction for. And the rapid response teams, which need this equipment in order to start doing that work, I think need to get out in the community as fast as we can. We can continue to delay and to talk about things forever, but this is what the community voted for, and I'm for going forward with it. Thank you.
Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to, I guess, mention a few more things. And that is, one, I've read the ballot language, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't say dump truck, Caterpillar 914M wheel loader, Bobcat track loaders, or four-wheel drive cab and chassis in it. I don't think the voters had any idea we were necessarily purchasing a dump truck when they voted for a sales tax increase. And I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't make the purchases. I'm simply suggesting that before I vote and approve to purchase nearly nearly $1 million worth of equipment, that I want to know what the program is. I want to vet it out because that's my job. That's what this council's here for. We're the ones supposed to be setting policy, and I don't think we've had that discussion yet, and I'd like to. I'd also add that something tells me that the manufacturers of this equipment in their infinite wisdom probably made more than one, and I really don't think we'll have an issue finding the equipment whenever that time comes.
Vice Mayor.
Steve, when would it come back?
Well, that really depends upon the maker of the motion and what the council decides to do. I can tell you that the plan for the spending plan for the fiscal year 1920 is going to be incorporated, for Measure N dollars, is going to be incorporated into the budgets that you will start to see here next month, I believe beginning with an overview on May 8th, and then May 22nd, I believe, is the next meeting after that, where we will get into department budget presentations. My understanding is that the expenditure plans that the departments will be presenting will include not only their regular budgets, but also the Measure N components, which have been brought to the Oversight Committee over the course of several meetings. So the discussion I would anticipate would begin with that process.
May I ask, Willie, are you going to be here at the next council meeting, May 8th?
I will not be.
Okay. Is there a life safety issue with staff or anything by not having this equipment immediately?
I do not believe there's a life safety issue. I believe we are trying to get ahead of the curve to acquire the equipment in anticipation of the new fiscal year beginning. Again, going back to the lead times for some of the different pieces. However, I do not think that there's any sort of life safety issue at stake.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff, can you refresh my memory? I attended a few of the Oversight Committee meetings, and I read all of the materials. I just can't remember exactly when the rapid response teams was presented. But I believe we had a presentation on the rapid response team at the last council meeting.
So I can tell you in terms of the Oversight Committee, the discussion related to the rapid response teams was done early in the process, especially as it relates to these actions, because these were based upon the current dollars that are being received in the current fiscal year. In terms of the last council meeting, I'm going to have to defer to staff because I was not here for the last council meeting, so I can't reference that.
Councilmember Gonzalez, through the mayor, City Manager Tandy did present an overview of the measure and the overview of the overall budget at the last council meeting on March 20th. In addition to that, the department heads have all given detailed overviews of each of the proposals, including the rapid response teams. And these equipment requests were included in those overviews provided to the Measure and Oversight Committee.
Thank you. I, for one, I understand where Councilmember Rivera is coming from, but I am comfortable with moving forward with these items. I wish we had this in place 2 years ago, and I'm eager to jump on this. I think our community is demanding it. Certainly, constituents in my ward are demanding these services right now, and I think we need to move. So, thank you.
What's the timing on the personnel, and how does that intersect? So we're hiring people for these teams to use this equipment. Is this going to come together? Are we lagging with the hiring of the personnel, just timing-wise?
So the personnel associated with the programs are included with the proposals for the fiscal year 19-20 budgets for the large part. We are doing some early hiring related to the Human Resources Department to get ahead of the curve of being able to bring on all the staff that is included in the Measure N proposals. But I'm looking, Nelson, but I believe all the staff related to these programs is in the July 1 fiscal year budgets.
Thank you. Councilmember Sullivan.
Well, Willie, I commend you for noticing this, being concerned about it, and bringing it up. And we all need to be very well versed, no surprises, with this amount of dollars that we're talking about. So, so how are you feeling now with the explanation that was given?
I think what Mr. Tegla just said, which is that it's part of the next fiscal year budget, which we have not yet been presented with or otherwise made a decision on, I think further proves my point that I don't think we should be purchasing equipment before we've approved those staffing positions or those programs. And we won't be doing that until at least May or June.
So staff, what, with Willie's strong feeling about this, and he has a very good point, how could this be handled? And really, his point is good, and we need to avoid this in the future.
Sure, Councilmember Sullivan, through the mayor, I understand Councilmember Rivera's point clearly. I think staff is of the position that we think it's advantageous to bring this action before you and to get approval to move forward. Again, it's carrying out the process that was related to the expenditure approvals that happened at the last meeting. But again, if it's the will of the council to postpone this till you've had the opportunity to hear more about the various plans and ask some questions and then approve these types of expenditures at that time, I think we will deal with that and we will live with that. But again, I just want to be clear that we wouldn't have brought this forward if we didn't feel that it was prudent.
Mm-hmm. Well, Nick, did you start to say something?
Mayor, Councilmember Sullivan, correct. What Steve's saying, we're suggesting to start this acquisition process now because it does take several months in order for us to acquire the vehicles and then outfit them to put them into service. So if we were to wait until July to make that acquisition, or even May, it could slip the whole schedule, and we would have this program with people but no equipment to perform the function. So it is a timing aspect that the equipment lead time is much longer than trying to get the staff on. The staff can be relatively quick depending on the availability of equipment. So if we want to start this program with the measure in, kick it off in the fiscal year, we need to have that equipment on order now so that we can bring it into service, outfit it with all the equipment that needs to be placed on it, and then have it ready for when the staff does come on board. Otherwise, we're going to have a group of staff members that don't have the equipment to perform the functions they've been required to do. I can have our fleet superintendent probably give a little bit more description on some of those lead times if you'd like that. He is available up in the audience, share with some of the issues that we've had with trying to acquire these pieces of equipment now, because there is due to the steel tariffs, there are a shortfall on equipment, especially the larger pieces such as the dump truck. That one is one of the proposed pieces of equipment. They have a very limited amount of heavy chassis vehicles available due to the steel tariff. So passing this opportunity up, the dealer will not hold it. It will go to somebody else, and there's a good chance that we will not be able to get another vehicle. And if you would like, I could have Mr. Vogel provide a little bit more description on that.
Go ahead, Bruce. Go ahead.
Okay.
I've had a request here for 10 minutes. No, yet.
Councilmember Freeman, then back to Councilmember Rivera.
I have a point of clarification, because I am confused. At our prior council meeting, I think it was that, not the one before, we had a presentation, and I thought we approved a sort of a 12, 14 million, a pre-approval in advance for this exact item. We had a presentation, we went there, and we approved it. It was only 14. We weren't going to approve anything else. It was sort of ahead of the full budget, and because 12 of it was really just reserves, you know, we said, okay, we'll approve a little bit. So we've approved, we gave you the signal to do it. Now, my understanding, the reason we're talking tonight is that this is new stuff. This was not included in that, and that Councilor Rivera, I thought, was objecting to the piecemealing of, well, you approved that, now we'll bring another little batch today. Is there going to be another piecemeal the next time? I'm against the piecemealing. I don't want to find, well, there's another million in the next meeting, another million in the next meeting, all before June. But if this is part of what we already approved and told you to go forth with, I'm a little uncomfortable trying to reverse the approval because we approved it and told you to do it. So I want to be sure the council understands, if this is stuff that we already gave you an approval on, I think we have to keep our word. If this is new stuff that you didn't include, it's sort of, well, shame on you. You should have had it in that batch that you asked this council to approve. So I'd like to be perfectly clear, was this already in the batch we approved last council meeting?
Mr. Tellia, and also just to clarify on there, are there any subtleties related to the answer?
So the latter statement you made is correct. The last council meeting, and I think part of the issue is I don't think Councilmember Rivera was here at the last meeting either. The council did approve the expenditure of about $14.5 million, which was the revenue to be received in this fiscal year. And there was a plan brought forward both to the Oversight Committee and to the City Council on how to spend those resources. And included in that was the $12 million to the Fiscal Stability Reserve that you mentioned, some additional funding related to the police department renovation of a training facility, and then there was an allocation of resources directly related to the expenditures that are now coming forward tonight. This is part of them. This is not the entirety of the pieces of equipment that need to be procured, but it's a portion of them. And so, yes, the authorization in terms of the appropriation has already been done. Now staff is coming back to the council with the specific language related to waiving bidding requirements and the actual acquisition of each piece.
I feel a little uncomfortable having approved it and said, go get it done, and then saying, whoops, no. I mean, I don't know if there'll be any other piece, this isn't a piecemeal. I would not be in favor of you bringing $1 million next meeting saying, hey, we forgot to mention this and the other one, till we get to our final meeting. But if we, if we approved it, I mean, I just think we're going to have to keep our words so we don't send mixed signals to the staff. That's the reason I'd be willing to go forward with this, simply because I already voted to approve it.
Any further clarification, Mr. Talia?
Just the additional comment that some of the other equipment that may have been procured was below some of the thresholds that may have come to council. So nothing is being piecemealed. The approvals that were already put in place at the last council meeting related to the $14.5 million is what staff is acting on now. So there will be no additional expenditures related to that absent what you've already approved.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Rivera.
I can't help myself. So and I said this at the beginning, so I went through and understood what happened on March 20th, so my absence doesn't mean I didn't know what happened. There was an appropriation of $900,000, I believe, approved, specific to equipment, though I don't think that the appropriation necessarily means you got to go out and spend the money immediately. And I'll be honest, I think there's a certain lack of restraint associated with Measure N dollars right now that I'd like to at least get a better grasp on. So this is piecemealing because we're approving equipment for programs we haven't approved. So it seems to me the worst form of it. I don't know that anyone would buy equipment for a project they didn't have a contract for. And we have not reviewed or approved staffing or programs for any of this, and we won't be doing that until we get into the budget for the next fiscal year. That's my point. That's all I have to say.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you. Well, I think our point has been made, and I understand where you're coming from. And so hopefully, we're going to get better at this, and I will go ahead and give my support to this because I do think it is important. But I'm expecting just us to be given the opportunity in the future to feel very comfortable and ready for the large purchases that need to be made. Thank you.
I have nobody on the board. Councilmember Smith.
We're getting close to voting, and I just want to be clear that a no vote on this means we are agreeing with staff's recommendation and going forward.
Mayor, Councilmember Smith, that is correct. The motion is to delay this item until it is handled through the upcoming budget process. That is the motion.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I'm in total agreement with the others, too, that, this equipment needs to get out there as soon as possible. But with difference to my colleague, Willie Rivera, too, I think that council members should have all information provided as far as budget issues coming up with Measure N. And if he feels uncomfortable at this point, I'll be his wingman and I'll support him.
Mr. Gennaro, do you have a question? Just my comment, Councilmember Rivera's point about having us consider the big picture before narrowing it down, I think, is valid. Going forward, as we look at other things, if we can come to a consensus as a council, reflecting back on our earlier meeting, talking about our top priorities, I think that helps staff to get a better sense of the direction of what's important, and then we start drilling down to the specifics. You have a motion. Please cast your votes. Oh, there's one more speaker. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Just real quick, Mayor, to respond to your comment with all respect, I just want to make clear that staff has honored the goals that were established through Measure N regarding homeless reduction, and they have presented big picture programs, and they are bringing these recommendations under that guise. And I feel like we do have a goal and we're working towards this. And so I just want to make sure that we're being honest about what we're doing here. We have an emergency right now when it comes to homelessness, and we have to address it. We have homeless encampments that are popping up all over the city, and we have to respond. And I know you've been working and you've been providing excellent leadership to respond to this. This is in alignment with that goal. And this is what we've directed staff to do. This is what the community has asked us to respond to. So I want to make sure that that we are honest about it. We are working on these goals and we're trying our best. And I think that this is really necessary at this time.
Clearly, we have the Measure N goals, but the connection I was trying to make is quite a bit earlier, there was a request for the council to consider the council's goals in general related to the budget. And to me, it feels like we got out of sequence with that, where we're coming to the overall budget so late that we really don't have the opportunity. Certainly, I know that we have a crisis with homelessness and we need to do something about that. But the point that I was making is related to the bigger picture. It just feels like we got out of sequence, and maybe in the future, that's something that we can just think, reflect upon again and see whether we can do a better job of getting that in sequence, just so we're all together on the same page.
I understand.
You have a motion?
Appreciate that.
Please cast your votes. Don't hit it again if you've already voted, but if you haven't, go ahead and press it. It cancels it out if you tap twice.
I'm sorry, I missed.
Mayor Go, we have a tie. I need you to vote, please.
I'm sorry.
No, it's on there.
Clerk, I need you to make sure, please, we need to revote.
Let's do a vote.
I need to see
Yeah.
I
it.
need to revote, please.
Revote?
Yes.
Yes, I think we hit the wrong button.
Yeah, I mistakenly.
So a no vote means, do you want to state this again, please?
Sure. The motion is a motion to delay until the budget process. So if you vote in favor, we're delaying it until the budget process. If you vote no, then I would say you need another motion. It's just, we're going to vote on Willie's motion right now. The motion is to delay. Yay or nay?
Okay.
I mistakenly pressed the wrong button. I apologize.
All right. So let's do this again. Do we need any further clarification on what you're voting for? So a no vote is to?
A no vote is just a no vote.
Yes.
Let's not confuse it, please. It's a motion to delay these items, AI through AN as in Nancy, until the budget process.
Got it.
If that motion doesn't pass, we will need another motion from the council to approve items 8I through 8N.
Yes.
So very simple, motion to delay until the budget process. Yes or no?
You have the motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion fails with Councilmember Gonzalez, Smith, Freeman, and Sullivan voting no, and Councilmember Weir absent.
Thank you. And so now we will need another motion related to those items.
Yes, I need a motion to approve items 8I through 8A, N as in Nancy, please. And remember, if you make the motion, you need to vote in favor of the motion.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you. I would move approval for items 8AI through 8AN.
Thank you.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera voting no and Councilmember Weir absent.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Consent calendar public hearings, item 9A through 9E for approval.
It's now time for the consent calendar hearings. The purpose of this section is to vote on all of the items listed under consent calendar hearings in one motion without further comment. If anyone would like to speak on any of the hearing items, the item must be removed from this portion of the agenda. If an item is removed, it will be placed at the end of the regular public hearing. At this time, I will open consent calendar public hearings item 9A through 9E. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to request that a hearing item be removed from the consent calendar? If so, please come forward. This isn't the time to take testimony, only to remove. Seeing none, does any council member wish to remove an item from the consent calendar hearings? Seeing none, at this time, consent calendar public hearing, items 9. Okay, I'm sorry. All right. Correct. Did you misunderstand that? Okay, that's okay. We all make mistakes. So come on up here. I mean, it's hard sometimes to follow this if it's your first time. So come on up here, and this is not the time to speak on it, but if you want to have an item removed, come up here and tell us which one it is.
Good evening. My name is
Can you go ahead and speak on right over there?
This one?
Pull that down. Okay. Yes, please. And just tell us which item, and then we'll come back, and you'll have a chance to talk about it later.
9E.
Okay. So that will be considered later in the agenda.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to have an item removed that's 9A, B, C, or D? Okay, so at this time, consent calendar public hearing items 9A. Oh, okay. Would you like to have an item removed from 9A, B, or C, or D?
My name is Ephraim Rodriguez, and I would like to remove item C.
Thank you, and you'll have an opportunity to address that later. Is there anyone else who would like to have 9A, 9B, or 9D to be removed? Council members? No. At this time, consent calendar public hearing items 9A, 9B as in boy, 9D as in David are closed. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Make a motion to approve consent calendar public hearing items 9A, B, and D as in David.
You have a motion? Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Before our next item, the public hearing, before I open that up, I'll go over the presentation time policy. Each side will be allowed 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes for all speakers, so it's important that you identify yourself and make your statement quickly so others may speak. We'll hear statements from those opposed to staff's recommendation. Then we'll hear from those who'd like to speak in favor of staff's recommendation. If there's testimony on both sides, each side will be allowed a 5-minute rebuttal. There's a clock on the wall on the two TV screens behind me, which indicates 15 minutes. Please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and after 14 minutes, a yellow light will come on, and at the end of 15 minutes, a red light will flash, indicating your time is up, and we ask that you quickly end your statement. You may ask questions during your statement, but they won't be answered until the public hearing is closed. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, would you please give those to the clerk, and she'll provide copies to the council. Please be courteous to others who wish to speak. Unless there's approval by the majority of the city council, there's a strict 15-minute time limit for all those in favor or in opposition to staff's recommendations. So we ask you to be concise, avoid repeating the remarks of previous speakers. And before we have the clerk read the first item, I just need to check with my colleagues. Do we need a 5-minute break? Does anybody need to get up? Because we need you all present during this portion. Staff? All right, so we're going to need to wait until Councilmember Freeman comes back. So if you'll all stay in your place. Madam Clerk, actually, you can go ahead and read the item. I think Ms. Kitchen is trying to get your attention.
The other one. They were moved to the end of the agenda, were they not? They get moved to the end of the hearings?
We do 10A first.
Yes, correct. Under hearings item 10A, Annual Action Plan, Budget and Finance Committee Report regarding fiscal year 2019 Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnerships, Housing Opportunities for Persons with HIV/AIDS, and Emergency Solutions Grant Action Plan Submittal.
Ms. Kitchen, would you like to offer comments?
Yes, good evening, Mayor Go and Council. This evening, Mr. Hayward Cox, our Community Development Director, will be giving you the presentation this year. Mr. Cox doesn't quite have 30 years under his belt yet, but he has 29 and a half. And he will be retiring this year, and so as his final gift to us all, he is doing the presentation this year. So I will leave it to him.
Welcome.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor Go and council members. Good evening, and it's my pleasure to present this proposed fiscal year 2019-20 action plan to you. And yeah, it's also been my pleasure to work for the city all this time. And I'd like to just get into the presentation now. Program overview of the action plan. And the first thing I'd like to tell you about is HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. They do have a mission to create strong, sustainable communities and also quality, affordable housing. Talking about entitlement communities, City of Bakersfield is an entitlement community, which means that we have 50,000 or more citizens in the city. The funding sources, we also would like to just mention that we're applying for community development block grant funds, home investment partnership funds, emergency solutions grants, and also the HOPA, or the housing opportunities for people with AIDS. The city, in order to receive these funds, is required to produce and adopt a consolidated plan. Normally it's a 5-year plan, and this year is the last year of our 5-year plan. And the plan, it reviews the community needs and sets priorities for future funds. And this is for decent, safe, affordable housing, investment in community and development areas. Also, it provides infrastructure for low-income areas. and public services. And as I said, we have to do a plan every 3 to 5 years, and we have chosen the 5-year track. The annual action plan that we're implementing now, this is the 5th year of the 5-year plan, so we will be doing a new plan in the coming months, in the coming year. The estimated funding that we are looking at is for a total of $5.9 million through CDBG Home ESG. The milestones that we have gone through are the application for projects. It was accepted November 2nd, 2018. That was our due date. And then Budget Finance Committee in February gave us recommendations. The draft action plan went out for public review on March 8th, and we're in that 30-day period at this point. And the staff has held a community meeting at Baker Street at the Housing Authority Community Room, and I'd like to let you know that there were about 20 people who showed up, and I think we had a profitable, informative meeting. And today, we're asking you to approve the draft action plan. And then we have a deadline to submit this action plan to HUD. That date says May 16th. However, HUD has not informed us of the allocations yet, and so we cannot submit until we know what HUD will give to us. We have an absolute date of August 16th, and we hope that we'll hear from HUD before then. And the available resources for CDBG, the entitlement is $3,638,000, and we also have $8,000 in program income for a total of $3,646,234. And off the top, we have to look at administration for staff, costs and whatnot, and so that's 20%. And then we also have Section 108 loans, which we borrowed future entitlement to do projects now. And so we're now paying for those. And so at the very beginning, we have to take those out. It's a little over $1 million, and that leaves us with the total resources of $2.55 million. The fixed allocations are, again, 20% for management oversight coordination, fair housing services, and then the Section 108 loans. And as you see, the Section 108 loans went to pay for aquatics improvements and also street improvements. And here are the proposed projects: fair housing, Bakersfield Senior Center, Bakersfield Police, the mission at Kern operations for the expansions that they're doing there, and also for the home access rehabilitation program that we do, and various public works, curb gutter, sidewalk projects, and then 2 parks projects. Unfortunately, we can't fund every application that comes to us, and so this is a list of the applications that were not funded in this funding cycle, but we always encourage the applicants to come back again. Here's a map plotting the proposed projects for the areas. And then just to get into some detail, just so you can get a glimpse of what this money is actually going to do. Bakersfield Senior Center, we're proposing $90,000, and their programs include nutrition programs, health screening, social activities, exercise information for seniors. The mission at Kern, we are proposing to fund operations for their new day center or navigation center that they're opening up at 800 Baker using state funds to do the construction. The Home Access Program, it allows people who are physically disabled to have things like ramps, grab bars, shower heads, handrails, things like that to give them more access and mobility around their homes. And of course, the Bakersfield Police Department, the impact team that's working primarily downtown and also in wards 1 and 7 to ensure that the businesses and the residents get good police service. Project detail on the curb gutter sidewalk. Just want you to see that before and after pictures. These projects, they not only help with aesthetics, but they help with improved access and drainage in the neighborhoods. And so these are ADA improvements also, allowing people to be able to be mobile and to be able to walk in their communities. And here's this map. It depicts the past 3 years of projects that we've done, just to show you that we try to make sure that these projects are contiguous and they actually give benefit to the neighborhoods. Union Brundage, this is a multi-phase project that we've been working on for a few years, and we're proposing another $300,000 to continue with the drainage improvement curb gutter sidewalk. La France is another multi-phase project that we've been working on for a few years, and there's another $300,000 funding proposal to work with curb gutter sidewalk. There's also the Oildale area curb gutter sidewalk. These are all, you've seen these before, these are all continuous projects until we can get the whole thing taken care of. The Castro area curb gutter sidewalk program project is a $200,000 funding that we propose for that. And then the Baker Old Town Kern area, this is street reconstruction. Curb gutter sidewalk has been completed in much of the area, and now the department has determined that some of the streets need to be reconstructed, and so the funding will go for that. And then there's a Beale Park lighting improvements. As you can see in the pictures there, you have some lighting fixtures that are deteriorated and inefficient, and they need to be replaced with more modern fixtures. They'll have a retro look, but they'll be energy efficient and easier to maintain. Beale Park restroom also, there's a replacement needed because this park restroom, I don't know how long the building has been there, but it is in need of being taken out and rebuilt. So we're proposing funding for that also. For the Home Investment Partnership Program, this is money to develop affordable housing within the city of Bakersfield. And normally we would like to point to a project that we are going to fund. At this point, we are evaluating projects, and at a later time, we will bring a project to this council to consider and approve. But there's $1.5 million available for affordable housing, and as you know, affordable housing is a great concern all over California and even here in the Bakersfield area. The Emergency Solutions Grant is a grant that is to help homeless people with street outreach, shelter, and also rapid rehousing. So up until now, the amounts have been not much to address the problem, but fortunately, the state has listened to Mayor Go and others, and there's more money coming in for these types of projects. And there's a map to show where the service providers are located with this Emergency Solutions Grant. And then there's the housing opportunities for persons with AIDS. And in this program is pretty much a pass-through. The federal government gives the money to the city, and the city passes through to the Kern County Health Department, and they administer the services and assistance to program participants. In the past, in the not so distant past, the state of California actually administered the program through the public health department. However, when they had some staffing problems and whatnot, they returned that responsibility to the city. And just recently, they've asked to take those responsibilities back, and so staff is working with them to be able to return the responsibility to the state. And just in summary, CDBG, HOME, ESG, HOPWA, those are the funding programs that we have. And the resources we're looking at is about $6 million. And we're asking you to consider this and approve this action plan. Now, I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cox, and happy 29th. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing. How many people would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation?
Mayor Go, I would like to just make an announcement. We've received a staff memorandum transmitting additional correspondence from Andrew Brager.
Thank you. Okay, how many people would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Seeing none, is there anybody who would like to speak in support or favor of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, at this time, oh, I'm sorry, I missed you. Come on forward, I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Lily Parker. I'm the Executive Director of Bakersfield Senior Center. And good evening, Mayor Go and all the council representatives. I am in favor of the draft action plan. Bakersfield Senior Center has been a recipient of the CDBG grant. And basically, I just want to say thank you. First of all, thank you for that. And also, with the fact that we do get the funding, there's much more work to do. And if there's any funds hiding somewhere, please remember us, because I have so many low-income, underserved seniors that need the additional funding for the many activities and projects, and of course, our lunch program, and our health and wellness program that we also have available to our seniors, which is a diabetes empowerment and education program. So with that being said, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. We appreciate all the good things that you're doing there. And I'll be out there for that meal. Fish fry. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dennis Fox. I also heavily support this. And not only do I support the block grant, and I was wondering, I would like to, before I forget and lose my car keys, anyway, I'm getting at that stage. And I would like to bring up something that is in addition to it. And that is, I drive down 4th Street, and it's getting, the school buses is who I blame. It's getting pretty bad. And I was just wondering if they're going to fix that, if they could also chip seal the lot at the senior center. might be worthwhile taking a look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in support of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and return it to council for comment and action. I do have one question related to the lighting at Beale Park. Is that going to help the band shell at all? I noticed that that has had some challenges. I see Ms. Hoover coming back in. Mr. Cox, if you know the answer, or Ms. Hoover, just curious on that.
Mayor Go, members of City Council, the proposal, from what I understand it, was just for the park lighting, but we can look at the amphitheater lighting as well.
I think we've heard many comments during the summer concerts from the musicians about that.
That's true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleagues, Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank staff for all their hard work in preparing this action plan this year. As the chair of Budget and Finance Committee, my colleague Councilman Rivera and Councilman Weir have worked with staff on this, and I just appreciate all of their hard work and research and responding to all of our requests and questions. So thank you. And thank you, Mr. Cox.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm going to make two motions on this. The first motion, I'm going to approve all the items, but the second motion is in regards to the police CDBG monies. When I was on Budget and Finance with Councilman Gonzalez, who has a lion's share of this area as far as the CDBG monies for the police officer, I was definitely in favor of it because there was a need there. But thanks to the citizens of Bakersfield, we now have Measure N that is now going to bring on 100 police officers and other resources for the city. So I'm going to ask that the CDBG monies remain in here, but for next year, as academies come on and staff come on within the police department, that these monies go back into CDBG, of which I'm sure Wards 1 and Ward 2 will probably get lion's share of that money anyway. So my first, what my first motion is going to be, make a motion to accept a report and authorize the city manager to execute all documents required to submit the annual action plan. My second motion will be that, do one at a time?
One at a time.
All right, all right.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So my second motion is that next year, the monies allocated for the Bakersfield Police Department through CDBG be returned to CDBG.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes. Oh, Bob Smith, I'm sorry. We have a little delay on these. Before you cast your vote, Councilmember Smith, would you like to speak?
Thank you. I haven't been on the Budget and Finance Committee, but I mean, you're making a motion to give direction to them because they really go through and make those decisions, or I'm not sure how this actually all flows through from this point.
Ms. Kitchen.
Councilmember Smith, through the chair, I think the direction that I'm hearing is for staff during the initial staff review of the applications when they come in next year. Every year, the process, as Mr. Hayward or Mr. Cox outlined, the applications come in October. Staff does an initial review and makes recommendations to the Budget and Finance Committee, and that kicks off the process from there.
So his recommendation would be, or staff's recommendation, council's recommendation as we vote on it, would be for your staff's first
priority
first
to be
priority.
to look elsewhere.
And then
find
Budget and
other-
Finance, it would go through them.
Correct, and then it
all
would
get
come to
worked out.
council.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Anyone else? You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. So now, Madam Clerk, would you please announce item 9C? And again, does anybody need to take a break before we move ahead? Because we need to be all present. So, okay, let's stand up and stretch. Okay, so now that we are all reconvened, Madam Clerk, would you please read the next item that we'll consider?
Public hearing to consider general plan amendment, zone number 18-0356. City of Bakersfield is proposing a general plan amendment zone change located at the southwest corner of Berkshire Road, Mountain Ridge Drive intersection. The request includes 1, an amendment of the land use element of the Metropolitan Bakersfield General Plan land use designation, low-density residential, to public-private schools or a more restrictive district on 2.15 acres, and resource-intensive agriculture to parks and recreation or a more restrictive district on 16.53 acres. The request also includes number 2, a change in zone classification from agriculture 20-acre minimum lot size to one-family dwelling or a more restrictive district on 12.97 acres, and agriculture 20-acre minimum lot size to open space or a more restrictive district on 16.53 acres. Negative declaration is on file.
Thank you. Staff, would you like to address this before we open it up?
Certainly, Mayor. As the city clerk has already read most of the presentation for me, I'll keep it very brief. This is a routine staff-initiated general plan amendment zone change on the property shown on the aerial here before you. It's at the southwest corner of Berkshire and Mountain View Ridge. It involves the site of an existing school, Douglas Miller Elementary, and a future park site. This is essentially a cleanup action to take property that's currently zoned for agriculture and to change it to the appropriate land uses to match the existing school and the future school site or park site. And I'm available if you have any additional questions.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. How many people would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Oh, we already, okay. So seeing none, how many people would like to speak in support of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, at this time, I'll close the public hearing and return it to council for comment and action.
Motion to accept consent calendar public hearing item C.
9C, you have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. And now, Madam Clerk, would you read 9E, please?
Public hearing to consider general plan amendment zone change number 18-0278. Swanson Engineering, Inc., representing Dr. Victor Kitt, property owner, general plan amendment zone change on 21.14 acres located on the east side of Union Avenue, about 440 feet north of East Berkshire Road and south of and adjacent to the Arvin Edison Canal. This request includes an amendment, number 1, an amendment of the land use element of the Metropolitan Bakersfield General Plan land use designation from low-density residential to high-medium-density residential on 21.14 acres, or a more restrictive designation. The request also includes, number 2, a change in zone classification from one-family dwelling to limited multiple family dwelling on 21.14 acres, or a more restrictive district. Mitigated negative declaration is on file.
Ms. Kitchen?
Thank you, Mayor. So this project is a request as shown on the map here. Let me pull it up for you. Over in the southeast part of town, it's on South Union Avenue and just north of East Berkshire. And it is a property that's currently zoned for large residential lots. However, the property owner has approached staff and asked to change the zoning to a higher density type of use, specifically the R2 zone with an HMR designation, which allows for a higher density development. And the proposal includes the development of 67 one-story duplex units, which would result in 134 overall dwelling units. This site did go through a normal public hearing process, and it was presented to the Planning Commission. No public comments were received, and it remained on consent at the Planning Commission. And this evening, staff is recommending approval, and I do see that the applicant's representative is here in the audience for further questions.
Thank you. How many people would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Please come forward. Welcome. Please identify yourself.
Good evening again. My name is Nelly Lopez, and I'm one of the homeowners affected by this proposal. I have spoken to several of our neighbors in the area. I've been speaking to them, and actually all of them, the ones that I spoke to, the homeowners, oppose this proposal. Some of them were here. There's a neighbor who had a little baby, and she was here at 5, and the baby just couldn't stay. But, you know, there were a few neighbors that came but left. I would like just to say that we would like to keep this area as one family dwelling, as it is right now. We are opposed to the limited multifamily dwelling, which proposes to build like 134 dwelling units. Most of this area is a single home areas. There's a lot of homes being built on Panama Lane, which are single homes. La Jolla is building, and they're expanding their buildings, and we are fine with that. As we all know, this area currently is for residential single dwelling homes. We currently have an issue as far as the canal, the Arvin Edison Canal. Some of the neighbors have made police reports because they've seen young people or teenagers crossing or jumping that fence, which poses a risk. Now, there's not, like, that lot is empty right now, and there's not much activity, but we are just concerned that if we have that proposal or those duplex apartments being built right south to the canal, there's going to be an increased risk for more families. We're going to have young kids or people who are going to be tempted to do the same. The only thing that divides us is just a fence and just a wood wall, nothing else. Other than that, we are also concerned for our safety. Some of us live close to the canal. Our children play freely without, you know, any risk to them. But if we see that, you know, there's more people who are going to be tempted to hang out, per se, in the area with the canal, or tempted to jump over, then, you know, the kids are not going to be safe, since there have been previous reports of, you know, activity going on. The other thing that that we were considering is that this project does have an impact on sensitive receptors. We have Valle Verde Elementary School, Olivier Middle School, Golden Valley High School within a mile of this project. It was not mentioned, but in their report, McKee Middle School is within 1.5 miles of this project. We do have a daycare that is within less than a mile of this proposed project. Now, as the definition says, these are sensitive receptors that have an impact due to this project. The other point is the traffic. We have a lot of construction in that area and future construction for this zone. Panama Lane, Union, and Hosking, lots of construction. There has been times when it's just frustrating getting out of the community on Panama Lane, and you have to wait 5 to 10 minutes to go to work, take the kids to school on time. There's a lot of traffic. They approved those single homes, but the thing is that they never realized how an issue it was going to be with the traffic. Now, if we accept this other project from Swanson Engineering, it will create more chaos as far as traffic. These roads that I specified right now, they have potholes. They have not been repaired, and that is not good. If we are going to be, accepting all these dwellings, we have to make sure that the roads are conditioned to be driven on. There have also been a few accidents on that road because of that. There's just people coming from Lamont, people coming from the east side, trying to get through those roads, and it has caused quite a chaos. And I would just like to mention that's going to highly affect our neighborhood. If you could please consider our opposition to that, and hopefully you'll consider it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for speaking. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition against staff's recommendation?
My name is Ephraim Rodriguez.
Welcome. Go ahead and raise the mic.
My name is Ephraim Rodriguez, and I live in Borough Lane, and it's by Berkshire and Union. And what she was saying is the same thing that I was going to say, mostly the traffic and the potholes. They're never, we drive every day to school, the buses, they make it more harder for us. And if there's more, more traffic for us, we could hardly get to work, on time. So, I hope you can consider this, what we were saying about it, mainly the main things we were trying to, and, we've been having a lot of crimes in the area, because I work in a junkyard, and a lot of break-ins, and we need, more police surveil, rolling around. They take a long time to get to the place when we call them. So if you're planning to do this, make sure you're going to, but we don't want it what I'm trying to say. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in opposition against staff's recommendation? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak in support or in favor of staff's recommendation? Come on forward. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Mayor Go, council members. My name is Bob Swanson. I own Swanson Engineering. We were asked by Dr. Kitt to do this zone change and general plan amendment. He has a vision of having duplex units in this area. The impact to the neighbors is minimal. The full access on this project will go to Union Avenue. There'll be no access onto Berkshire. We're surrounded by Arvin Edison on the north. The housing development will actually prevent more access to Arvin Edison from that vacant lot than it currently has right now. The neighbors to the east have a fence. Berkshire, we're separated from Berkshire by a 10-acre parcel of land, which the owner has no intention of developing for quite some time and would not sell to us. So we have two access points on Union Avenue. The traffic, peak hour traffic, is minimal from this development. We will be asking for a left turn lane into it, and it'll be right turn lanes out of this headed north on Union Avenue. So we expect most of the traffic to be headed north, coming from the north, headed back to the north. The density is higher than single-family homes, but the homes are single-family duplexes. It's not an apartment project. We don't want an apartment project. We would like affordable housing that people can buy and purchase and live in. They will be resident owners is the intent right now, and we have a tract map which will be submitted soon on this project if the zone change and GPA are approved. any other questions, I'm able to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. You may have questions later from the council. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in support of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, I'll close this public hearing and return it to council for comment and action. Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. So I know this project is in my ward, and I actually salute you folks for coming out. It's actually not very often that neighbors are fully in tune with what's happening around them. So I really appreciate you guys coming down here to share your concerns. And actually, truthfully, a lot of the items you brought up, which I think are really independent of this project, are things that we should absolutely look into. I'm glad Mr. Swanson pointed out the exit. It looked like from the site plan there was only one entrance and exit, and that was on South Union. But that doesn't, there's no bearing on what's necessarily happening on Berkshire as you're leaving Bora Bora Lane, and I'm not sure what street you're in. But I'd like to ask our Public Works Department to head out there and check that out. If you know, potholes are one thing, but if there is, as growth continues in this area, and this project might necessitate it, there may be additional needs for widening roadways or doing additional work out there, and perhaps this qualifies for Prop 1 dollars. I don't know, but I know we approved some projects earlier on White Lane. Maybe this fits. So I'd like staff to look into that. If you guys, we're about to end the meeting. If you hang around, I can get your phone numbers as well, or you can give me a call if you have any other issues. But I do agree with Mr. Swanson that I do think the property is going to actually help alleviate some of the issues you're having along the Arvin Edison Canal. Limiting access is going to make it less appealing for folks to jump in. And I say that from experience because in my neighborhood I have a canal as well, and all that separates us is a fence, and no one hangs out there, which is actually a good thing. But if that continues to be a problem, then perhaps we can spend, one, we should communicate with Arvin Edison, but two, perhaps there's something we could do as a police department to help with that. So I appreciate you guys coming down. We're going to look into the issues you raised. I am beating everyone's, I'm annoying people a lot, asking for them to do projects like this in Ward 1 because I hate vacant land. It's unsightly, it attracts dirt, it attracts illegal dumping, and it really doesn't do a whole lot to, I think, improve the neighborhood. So I do appreciate you know, the opportunity for new development out there, and the reality is that this is probably the only thing that can work at the time right there. And as I look at the site map, it's actually, and I appreciate that it's all single story, but we're looking at what appear to be decently sized lots. And so I don't know that I necessarily have grave concerns over what you're doing. In fact, I appreciate it. So we'll monitor it. We'll look into the concerns you guys raised. I appreciate you coming down. I will move staff's recommendation on this particular project.
Thank you, Councilmember Rivera. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor Go. I just think we have to consider that we have a serious affordable housing problem in our community. We've had numerous speakers come down and tell us that housing to purchase under $300,000 is almost non-existent in the city, and we have a lot of, you know, legal obligation as a city coming from the state in our own general plan to provide housing for everybody, and especially people who are going to buy an OMA home. I don't know what these will sell for, but if it's $250 instead of $300, we've just reached thousands of more people who can have home ownership. You also see a lot of these duplexes sort of south of Harris, over in the west side, where they look very nice. Really can't tell the difference single family, but anyone who's paying over $200,000, which I'm sure these will be, for a home, is going to take care of that home. You know, their payments, I mean, if they were renting, I'm sure they'd be like $1,500 a month. these are going to be proud homeowners. And I think and new construction is always at far superior standards. You know, it's going to look good, it's going to be built higher quality probably than anything out there because of the new construction engineering standards. But I think we have to consider, we have to provide housing for everyone. And this isn't even rental housing. This is, for the most part, I would think, be homeownership. Some people might rent, but we've got to provide affordable housing in Bakersfield for everybody. And so and it's infill. It meets every single criteria we have in our general plan. Use our infrastructure more efficiently. Build infill. Build affordable. This really checks all the boxes. So I think I'm definitely in support of projects like this, and I think they turn out much better than sometimes the neighbors might think. These may be more expensive than the surrounding housing because they're new. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Vice Mayor. No, you were, and then him.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions. And to capitalize on what Bruce said, can somebody tell me, or the developer, is it intended for sale or for these to be rentals, or?
They'll be for sale. He does not intend to keep them and use them as all rentals.
Okay.
But that would mean one person might buy the duplex and
turn it into a rental.
And rent the other.
Right. My only concern is my area borders this area, and I have a lot of experience dealing with multifamily housing. And to Bruce, to your comments, yeah, they're a good thing to provide affordable housing, but if they're not managed right, they can be a mess. I have Coventry, which are triplexes, fourplexes in my area. Calcutta is another street with some duplexes, and they've sold off, and there are a lot of problems, a lot of police service problems. And right now it's a good product, but I'm looking 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, and what are we going to do if it's not managed right? So I want to ask Ms. Kitchen, what would a PUD overlay on this? Is that possible? Or, I mean, we're talking about a big property, 21 acres.
Yes, it's possible to do an R2 PUD combining zone, but in terms of management of the property, a PUD wouldn't really achieve that. The purpose of the PUD zone is to affect change on the design and layout of the actual development itself.
No, I agree with that, because how it's designed and developed can attract a certain renter or a certain person to possibly buy that property. So what we've done in the past in large projects like this, I've felt, and even conversations with staff, it is used as a tool to maybe mitigate stuff like that. When I say stuff like that, potential issues down the road.
So the action or the motion could be to approve the general plan amendment as proposed and to approve the R2 PUD combining zone.
Okay. Councilman Rivera, would you have an issue with that?
Well, I guess I'd like to ask the proponents of the project if they have an issue with it before we saddle them with something they may not be amenable to.
It's hard to give an answer to that one without Dr. Kitt, the owner, being here. Another layer of regulation is never fun to have on a project. The owner will develop a nice project. I can't guarantee what it will look like, but we have layout with the duplexes already. And we have the duplexes designed. They're designed by Paul Danon's architect. So those things are in the mill right now. And if it's a choice of overlay, then I think the owner would accept that, if that's our choice.
Okay. Thank you, sir. You know, tonight, in fact, the next thing we're going to talk about is standards for our community and how to make it look nice and improve things. and especially with concerns from the community, I think a PUD overlay could help this project. So, city attorney, just make a motion to have a PUD overlay on this, or?
Yeah, he did first.
Mayor, Councilmember Parley, I recall that Councilmember Rivera already made a motion.
Okay.
So if you would like to make a second motion, you may do that, and then we will vote on your motion first. And if your motion passes, there is no need to then vote on Councilmember Rivera's motion.
Okay. Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve hearing item 9E with a PUD overlay.
Okay, before we do that, I see that Councilmember Smith would like to offer comment.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple questions. You talked about 2 accesses on Union, but the plan we're looking at just shows one. There is a double access somewhere? Or this?
We have an alternate site layout which will be submitted for the track map.
So we are requiring 2 accesses?
I believe that the fire code would require 2 for a development of this size, but I would have to confirm. The development layout that's included in this packet is not binding. It was a conceptual. The action before us tonight is simply the zone change in the general plan amendment.
So we could end up with an access to the south or to Union, or no?
I suppose you could include a condition of approval stating that access shall be from South Union or limited to one or the other. I would defer to Public Works to see if he sees any issue with that, but it's kind of on the fly.
Yes, I will recognize Mr. Swanson. Come back to the microphone, please.
The property to the south is not owned by us. We don't have any access to get through that property.
No, I understand that, but you could stub something to the south, and when it got developed, it could provide another access.
A point of clarification, there is no public street going through that property to the south, so they would have to obtain an easement through that property in order to traverse through it, in order to get to Berkshire.
I understand immediately, but if you put a stub street there, then when that property developed, you would have another access.
Potentially, but that property is currently zoned E1, which is 1 acre estate residential sites.
And
So
how's that change what I'm saying?
Through a subdivision map, I guess a local street could be put in.
Councilmember Smith, as Mr. Swanson has indicated, he doesn't have control over that site. So by him putting in a stub street to that subdivision or that parcel, then dictates what that parcel is going to develop as. So we don't, right now, we don't have the ability to make that change, that condition on that parcel.
Councilmember Parlier's motion does remedy that by creating the need to come back for a future PUD layout where that actual design would be established.
Okay. My second question was, they mentioned the fence between the two. Could we require a fence between the existing, a block wall between the existing R1 and this project?
Yes, when this site goes to R2, if it is approved, there would be a requirement that this developer install a block wall between the existing R1 property to the east as well as the estate property to the south.
Okay, I didn't see that in the conditions, so that's added later.
That's in our zoning ordinance, and it's a municipal code requirement that would be enforced at either site plan review when they come in or at the tentative tract map stage, whichever comes first.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, you have another comment.
Yes, I just asked staff if my motion does pass, that you reach out to these nearby residents and just explain what that means.
Okay, anyone else before we go to a vote? You have a motion, please cast your votes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Under reports, we have item A, proposed increase to sidewalk widths on arterial streets.
Welcome, Mr. Fiddler.
Good evening, Mayor Goen, council members, Nick Fiddler, Public Works Director. At the February Planning and Development Committee meeting, the committee members requested staff to provide a report to the full council in regards to some of the changes that are proposed in the arterial street sidewalk standards. As you're aware, the city of the Public Works staff is working on the subdivision and design engineering manual. Sorry, I forgot the remote. So on April 17, 2018, Planning and Development Committee staff requested staff to review the widths of sidewalks along arterial roadways to better accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists. At that meeting, various options were discussed, including a 10-foot wide sidewalk on one side versus 8-foot wide sidewalks on both sides. During that meeting, staff was presenting the option of increasing the existing sidewalks, which are currently 6 foot along arterial standards, increasing them to 7-foot standards. As discussion progressed, there was significant discussion between staff and committee members to try to enhance the bicycle and pedestrian movements on our arterials. So we did discuss multiple options, and 2 of them prevailed, one of them being a 10-foot wide sidewalk on one side of the roadway and then 8-foot wide sidewalks on both sides of the roadway. So on February 26th, staff provided a presentation to the committee and made recommendations to increase the sidewalk width from 6 foot to 8 foot on both sides of the street. There were some complications with using the 10-foot sidewalk on one side of the street. Did make it challenging as development occurred on the streets, because there is a lot of hopscotching along the arterial roadways, whether the development has already occurred, there's new development on one side versus the other. Who do we task with putting the 10-foot sidewalks with on either the north or the south side of the street, or east or west, depending on the direction of travel for those roadways. So staff felt it was most beneficial and equal to have the 8 foot on both sides. The 8 foot provides adequate width for both pedestrians and bicyclists to use the sidewalk. So here is our current standard, which on the top, which shows the 45-foot right-of-ways, and then the 110-foot right-of-ways with 45-foot flow lines and 10-foot parkways. The proposed standard is, you could see that the overall width is still 110 foot for the right-of-way. We have increased the roadway width to 48 feet, which provides the additional width for the bike lanes. But we also now have some of the landscape easements on either side of the street. These landscape easements allow us to move the sidewalks back and forth. You can see that there's a detached sidewalk shown on the left-hand side of the screen, and then a combined sidewalk on the right-hand side of the screen. This gives the ability for the sidewalk to meander. And the new proposed standard will also allow for 9 feet of landscaping on one side or the other, or split between the 2 sidewalks. It still keeps 9 foot of landscaping available. Here is an example of a 6-foot wide sidewalk. You can see we have 2 pedestrians walking on there, almost shoulder to shoulder. This is on Coffee Road, almost near Hegman, in front of the commercial shopping center there on the southeast corner of Hegman and Coffee. And this is an example of a 8-foot wide sidewalk. This is on Buena Vista Road between the Pacheco or the railroad tracks and White Lane. area. And in this location, you can see the same couple of pedestrians walking with ample room between them and still having areas on the side for people to pass if they needed to. So at the conclusion of the February 26th meeting, Planning and Development Committee meeting, the committee members concurred with the proposed 8-foot sidewalks on both sides of the street and requested staff to present this report to the full council. Staff will revise the subdivision and engineering design manual standards to reflect the changes for construction of future sidewalks on all arterial roadways. Please bear in mind that this is a new standard. Existing tracks that already have tentative maps are not forced to do this standard, but that was another thing that we, as staff reviewed this, is that moving from a current 6-foot standard to an 8-foot standard, we can ask the developers to make that transition much easier than going to a 10-foot, because the 10-foot would be a significant amount of change. So, and there was also several members from the Home Builders Association at the meeting, and they had their opportunity to comment, and they also were in support of this recommendation. So staff recommends acceptance of this report.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Any request to speak? Seeing none. Vice Mayor?
Motion to accept report.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Council and mayor statements.
Thank you. Colleagues? Councilmember Freeman.
Ms. Kitchen, at our next Planning and Development meeting, I believe we're dealing with the ADU issue. That was one of the priorities. Is that correct? Or not?
That item is on the agenda for a future planning and development meeting.
Okay, well, I know my fellow councilmen here have been requesting that for quite a while, so we were sort of hoping we could deal with that. Councilman Rivera had asked that we deal with the recorded map extension issue, and so hopefully we can get that on the same agenda. Two other items, I may not be able to make it for this agenda, whenever the upcoming, which I hope is in a month or so, agenda, but the first is in reviewing the design standards for large commercial developments, which you helped me with and I reviewed, I discovered that anything below 50,000 square feet has no review whatsoever, and anybody can build anything they want anywhere in the city, which I was a little shocked to find out, except in Mr. Weir's district out in the Northeast, and you can't do that in that part of the city. Anything that you build at all has to have the same commercial design standards. I'd like to make it consistent all over Bakersfield that all developments are subject to the same design standards, and I'd like that to be evaluated by your staff and brought to Planning and Development.
Can I ask if you're clarifying if that would be the Northeast standards
Yeah.
applying to all, or the large retail development standards applying to all?
The large retail development, I actually sat for 3 hours with an architect, went through everything on one of them, and he actually convinced me that we don't really need to change those. He felt that, one of our local colleagues, that the planning director, yourself, has the discretion that even if you followed the formulas and created a really ugly project, that you could still overrule it and say, well, this doesn't work, because we formularized it so it didn't go to the Planning Commission to make it easier for the developers. Most developers do a good job. There's an occasional one that they can follow those formulas, but it still turns out to be very bad looking. So, but setting that aside, the other issue that I'd like for a future Planning and Development meeting is an examination of our CUP process that of recent controversy, where a landowner can take a parcel of land, like a shopping center corner on a busy intersection in the city, and never submit a site plan never plan the project and sell individual parcels and do all CUPs instead of the zoning that's allowed. And that's created a big controversy in our city. I think some of us were kind of shocked to find out that you could actually do that. And I think we need to examine the CUP process to see, you know, that perhaps major changes need to go to the Planning Commission and minor changes stay CUP. But I think we have to really think that issue through so we don't have the same thing happen that has recently been happening in our community, and understandably so, when drastic changes take place and they're done with CUPs. You know, people get upset. So I'd like us to look at the pros and cons. Are there changes we could make that would avoid this type of thing in the future and improve our processes? Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. I have another referral for the Planning and Development Committee. Back in June of 2017, I had referred to the committee that they explore adopting a new definition for microbreweries in downtown Bakersfield. We established that, and over the last year and a half, I've been working to recruit microbreweries in the downtown core. Unfortunately, there's still some language in that definition that is not workable for those who are in the microbrewery industry. And so in an effort to try to attract new businesses in the downtown area, I'd like the Planning and Development Committee to explore that. Specifically, conditional use permits are required if the applicant is not serving food. I'd like us to explore and strike that from the definition.
Thank you. And now Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, Planning and Development Committee, did I hear Councilmember Freeman's not going to be at the next one? And what is the, I'm showing an April 30th date for the next one. Is that correct?
Not here either. No, I could have been at April. We'd have kept getting moved and moved and moved.
Okay, so we don't have a date. We're working on it.
I don't believe we have a date now. Assistant City Manager Huot is in charge of that committee, so I think he'll be reaching out to the chair to establish a date for the next meeting.
Oh, okay. So, okay, great. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to make comment? Well, staff, we had a long meeting, and this long meeting involved a lot of work by you. So I just want to thank you. I know that some of it went by really quickly, but it took hours and hours of your work. So thank you very much. Mr. Fox, I think you win the public award for most endurance. Everybody else here, I think, is part of our staff. So thank you for continuing to stay with us. And if there's nothing further, we are adjourned at 8:29.
The 3:30 p.m. meeting of the Bakersfield City Council is now in session.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 3:30 City Council meeting of April 10th, 2019. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go?
Here.
Vice Mayor Parlier?
Here.
Councilmember Rivera? Councilmember Gonzalez?
Here.
Councilmember Weir? Councilmember Smith?
I'm here.
Councilmember Freeman? Councilmember Sullivan?
Here.
Thank you. To comply with the Brown Act, we'll receive public statements now. All statements are given a 3-minute time limit, 15 minutes per subject. We'd ask that you limit your comments to the workshop and closed session items only. Are there any public statements? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Workshops, item A, City Council goals and guiding principles.
Thank you. Mr. Tellier, do you want to make any comments before Ms. Carrier?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Brianna Carrier from our office will be providing you with a presentation which will serve as an overview of our goals process, our goal setting process. As you know, every few years we come back before the council and provide you a document which has kind of been our living goals document. We acknowledge some of the accomplishments that have been done over the course of the previous years to update the document, and then solicit you for any input that you might have, both in the form of the document and as well any items that you may want to add or delete from the focus of our work during the course of the year. So Brianna is going to provide you that overview. We are going to ask for some feedback between now and our meetings in May so that we can come back to you at a later date with a revised document for consideration. So with that, I will turn over to Brianna.
Thank you. I have the slides up. Okay. Honorable Mayor, City Council, Brianna Carrier, City Manager's Office, and I'll be providing, as Steve said, your Council Goals Update Report. So your last Council Goals were updated in April 2017, and I'm going to make reference quickly to 2 documents that were provided along with this item. So going along with that second bullet there, departments so far have reported their progress towards your Council Goals, and that is related to this kind of large, verbose 38-page document that was provided, so a lot of detail in there. This third bullet point here is in reference to what I'm calling the working document. So this is actually a cleaner document that, should you choose to move forward with this format, is one that we would want to work from. So we've taken liberty to provide that for you, and that one's a little bit shorter and easier to go through. And what we're doing now is the update for 1920, and we'll be, of course, receiving your input for future goals and bringing that back to a future meeting. When I say future meeting, that could mean a couple of things here, and this is something that staff is going to be asking for direction from Council for. We have some options here of how we're going to move forward with the 1920 Council goals, and the first one would be to essentially do business as usual, keep adding to this document as it is, and that's a pretty easy thing to do. Over the years, it's been added to, and it's gotten rather long and detailed, and so we could easily bring that back at the next meeting, which would be May 8th. The second option here underneath that would be what staff would recommend, which would be to refresh the goals document, essentially, which would provide the opportunity to streamline it, to condense it, or reformat it. And that would take a decent amount more time. We want to make sure we have adequate input from all of the council members before then. So that would probably take a bit more time, and we'd want to bring that back at the second meeting in May, which would be May 22nd. So just want to keep those options in mind as we go through the presentation, because we will be looking for direction in that regard. And we also provided you a quick summary of the 7 council goals as they currently are. And there are, of course, also guiding principles that go along with that, which are on various subjects. And just wanted to quickly note, as we go through this first part of the presentation, I'm going to be trying to go very quickly so we can get to your discussion. It's going to look pretty different for those of you who have gone through this in the past. We're essentially just highlighting some highlights from our departments here. So if you want more detail on some of these projects, we have staff available, and we also have, of course, that longer document here. So I will go ahead and get started. Number one of your goals is provide quality public safety services. The first highlight out of PD was the principled policing training. It's a great training. I myself have attended. I believe at least one other council member has attended as well. And it's based around the tenets of procedural justice, voice, neutrality, respect, trustworthiness. It's a pretty great training. It involves community members as well, and they're encouraged to attend. Can be pretty challenging, but is really innovative, as Bakersfield is one of the first ones that implemented this as mandatory for all staff. Of course, these two projects here, you've heard a lot about, body-worn camera project and the Shot Spotter project. You'll be seeing more information about these in your upcoming budget workshop presentations and their proposed expansion. But staff has been doing a really great job at vetting some vendors and making sure we have the capacity, the usability, and the storage that we need for the body-worn cameras. And Shot Spotter here, sorry, Councilmember Smith kind of threw you up there, but also received a Kern COG Regional Award of Merit, have gotten some valuable data out of that program. Moving on here to fire, so they have a state Homeland Security grant program, and they're able to use that to update their emergency operations center, always important, being prepared, and also using that towards emergency response tools for chlorine emergencies, urban search and rescue, for gas detectors. Another highlight out of fire is them issuing 1,463 CUPA permits to businesses that handle hazardous waste materials. And so for 18-19, that revenue is projected to reach $1.4 million approximately, which is a positive. And then the last thing out of that first goal, public safety, I wanted to tie in here was the wellness program. So wellness is actually a guiding principle, but we wanted to highlight what has been done within the public safety realm for the city. And this has come really out of risk management, where they have taken a proactive approach and provided heart health training, recognizing that the stress of a job in public safety is well above and beyond what you would receive in a normal job. So there are some programs that included some sort of know your numbers preliminary screenings, and officers and fire personnel could be referred further on if they needed additional support in that area. Additionally, when it comes to wellness, not just physical wellness, but also mental and emotional wellness as well, risk management has worked with a consultant who specializes in public safety stress management, and she has been really well received, and trying to open up our departments to make sure there's not that stigma there, depending on the stress that they have in the line of duty. So that has also been utilized and well received. And both of those programs are things that we also try and expand to all of our city employees. So that bottom left logo there is actually the Wellness Champions logo. We do some pretty fun programs around health seminars and challenges throughout the year. We're actually in the midst of one right now. People are very competitive. So moving on to number two, enhancing the city's transportation network. Just wanted to put this slide here as a reminder of what I didn't want to do, which is overload you guys with a bunch of text. So we'll be going through a lot of the trip updates later on in the presentation, but there are two that I wanted to pull out and acknowledge, and that's the West Park local streets improvements and the West Park Soundwall package. So that wasn't included in the last iteration of the goals, and it's already been accomplished, so it won't be in the future one, but wanted to acknowledge that those were completed in advance of the Centennial Corridor project. Number three, continuing positive downtown and major mixed-use development projects. So out of development services, of course, we have the Creek View Villas. They look wonderful. Developed and sold 7 new units, also provided assistance to 7 first-time home buyers, and now have 21 units that are fully developed and occupied, which fulfills the city's Prop 1C obligation. Additionally, out of development services, the Making Downtown Bakersfield Vision Plan also received a Kern COG Regional Award of Merit, and development services staff has already begun implementing some of those recommendations and zone changes. Moving on here quickly to number 4, planning for growth and development in the city. So this is normally around the different annexations we have. The Denon annexation was completed, and we've also received great feedback from the residents there who are happy with the response and city services. Some that are currently on deck is we have a local group who is interested in the annexation of the old Stockdale area. So that group is going to be meeting sometime within the next month, and staff will be on site to provide some information. And I believe another one that is also on deck is the Harris area for annexation. Moving to goal number 5, strengthen and diversify our economic base. So this is normally the David Lyman show. Of course, he's wonderful. His mission of getting people to stay in Bakersfield and spend their money in Bakersfield, and he's really great at that, and his staff. And so a really good development this year was getting some of these larger events to spread out their dates, essentially, so that people aren't competing for hotel rooms, and that those hotel rooms are booked for longer. And this event here in this photo is the CIF wrestling tournament that took place this year. It's also the first year that they added girls wrestling, so it was a day longer, and I like that photo. I like seeing the Rabobank really full like that. In addition to some of those efforts with bringing people to town, we also have some really nice marketing efforts that CVB is accomplishing. So what you see on the left here is an elevator wrap that's at the Kern County Raceway, trying to get Visit Bakersfield's name out there more so we can keep promoting all the different amenities that Bakersfield has. And then on the right here, this is a really neat little tool. This large blown up postcard backdrop here is something that they can bring with them when they go to conventions or when they're tabling. Obviously, it's a great photo op, and it makes Bakersfield look really great. So, like those two highlights right there. Moving on here to number 6, promote community pride and image. Of course, you're very familiar with these two projects here, the Kaiser Permanente Sports Village and the Torina Home Sports Complex at Mesa Marin. And at the Sports Village, this year completed phase 3, so that included picnic areas, parking lots, and soon to be the tournament stadium field with the stadium lighting. An interesting note about Kaiser Permanente as well is that all of their fields there are watered with reclaimed water from the treatment plant, so that is a great use of that. And then for Mesa Marin, also completed some picnic areas, playground, shade structures, really good reception of the spray park there that uses recycled water. There's filtration on site for that one there. And then Mesa Marin also has city staff completed the very large parking lot area in anticipation of the upcoming expansion, which is proposed for the next coming fiscal year. And of course, these two items, the Sports Village and Mesa Marin, have been council goals for a very long time. So great amenities, and not just those two large parks, but also what we have been accomplishing in neighborhood parks. So within this last fiscal year, most recently we have the Jefferson Park improvements, and that's a photo from that opening right there. It was a beautiful day. The kids were just chomping at the bit to get on those non-crusty courts, as they so affectionately described them. And so they have 6 new refurbished courts, ADA improvements. I think they also have ADA water fountain and some benches. So it looks great out there, and that's a nice jewel for that neighborhood. And including also other parks that have had ADA improvements and accessibility improvements, Jastrow Park, ones that were made with CDBG funding, Stern Park, Lowell Park, and the Mercury Aquatic Center. Not included on here, it was actually last fiscal year also improvements to Wilson Park and to Buick Park. I think also some security added to MLK. So a lot of reach into our neighborhoods as well. And this last one here, Bridle Creek, is the proposed park for upcoming development and aiming to be established this summer, 2019. Another community pride and image, making the downtown look really clean and new, is the Amtrak Solar Project. So a really awesome project that kind of took out some abandoned buildings and has made this area generally more attractive, and working with a contractor to put up those solar projects, electric vehicle charging stations, and long-term secure parking. So it's a nice amenity to the downtown area as well. Always want to highlight Rabobank Arena continuing to bring great acts to the city. Their attendance last year was over 500,000. And some various arena improvements that were made that has helped out their revenue considerably. So things like their craft beer area, their ice level lounge, and lots of upgrades to their suites, which keep season ticket holders coming back. So great out of Rabobank as well. So this is finally going on to the updates up to number 7, fiscal solvency. So the city, as always, continues to apply for and receive multiple grants in many areas. Continue to implement new technology to improve efficiencies. Again, Rabobank attracting high quality entertainers. And this last one here, which is a good positive, is the city having over $68 million on deposit in the irrevocable trust for the long-term retiree medical program. So that full obligation is approximately $140 million, and we are near 49% funded status, which is really well and above other cities. So that is a great positive to have as well. All right. Well, that's the first part of the presentation. Again, just wanted to get you guys quickly to your discussion portion that'll come after this. These goal updates are essentially going to be tracking that working document. So should your direction be that you would like to continue with the document as is, this would be the proposed changes that have come from staff, should you choose to keep them. So going through these, starting with number 1, public safety. This has to do with the International Association of Chiefs of Police to reduce priority response times. And the target action underneath that was to implement the highest priority of those recommendations. And the police department and staff feel that that has been accomplished so that that target action could be struck just for the sake of space. But that the initiative could stay. There are still some really good recommendations that came out of that report. And that is it for number 1 so far. Number 2, this would be the area and transportation where we'd be actually going through all of the TRIP projects. So this goal would be a suggested new goal regarding the 24 Streets Improvement Project. It was not included in the last iteration of the goals, but has an expected completion date of spring 2020. Another one would be the construction of the Beltway Operational Improvements Project. That is essentially complete, so we'd also like to strike that from the goals. This would be an update to the goal of the Hageman Flyover Project. The design was completed last year, and acquisition for the project will begin likely in the next fiscal year, in the very near future. That would be an update there. The design work, of course, for the main line of Centennial Corridor was completed in June 2018. That advertising went out in January with bids opening just recently, an estimated completion by 2022. And this is an item that I believe our Public Works Director is going to be expanding on later tonight. But again, this would be an update to a goal. These 2 goals here would actually be recommended for striking or deletion as they have been completed. So that would be, again, the design work for Centennial Corridor project, and the next one being the complete construction for the Truxton Avenue and Oak Street project. That same one here, the Truxton Avenue project, was completed in late 2018. Also received an award of merit, so good for us. This one here would be an update to the Kern River Bridge Improvements Project, which is expected to be completed this summer 2019. So these ones really are just around updating the dates here. Bell Terrace Project, another update. So second phase of Centennial Corridor, it's under construction and expected to be completed by summer 2020. Freeway Connector, third phase of the Centennial Corridor, was awarded and is under construction, expected completion by 2022. And I believe this is actually the last of the TRIP suggestions here. This would be a new goal which would incorporate the Stockdale Highway and Enos Roundabout project, and that would be for next year. So that's it for the transportation ones. These next 2 are suggested goals. They mostly center around development services, so continuing positive downtown and major mixed-use development projects. The first one here is allocate funds for potential acquisition and redevelopment of underutilized properties, which will likely be in line with the upcoming proposals you'll be receiving from departments and expansion within development services. And this other new goal would be to implement the Transformative Climate Communities Planning Grant for the Revitalizing Downtown Bakersfield Live, Work, Play project. So that's a $200,000 grant. The planning grant and deliverables for that will be due next year, April 2020. So getting out of that workforce development, housing, and transit planning for an area that includes much of downtown. Okay, and then these next 2 here are surrounding those parks expansions as well for Kaiser Permanente. So again, this is mostly an update that Kaiser Permanente has finished phase 3, and they would be open to design in their next phase in the upcoming fiscal year. And then this would also be an update to the Mesa Marin project, which would be opening up to its next phase 3 to begin construction in 1920. And then the last one here, out of Community Pride, this one was suggested from our Water Resources Department. This would be a new one, and it would be to enhance recreation and visual aesthetics along the Kern River Parkway by focusing on providing water in the river channel during the summer months. And in addition to the public benefits this will provide, it will also support the Water Resources Department's River Restoration Project. And it does a lot for the water's quality and supply that we have on hand. And really nice photo there, provided by Water Resources. And I believe that is actually the last of the staff suggestions and revisions that have come so far. Also wanting to acknowledge that we have the Public Safety and Vital Services measure ballot language that's incorporated. So we'll have further discussion about how we'll be moving forward. And that brings us to close to the end here, which is, again, that request for direction for staff. Going through and looking forward at, would we like to continue with the current document that we have as formatted, or do we have some ideas around sort of streamlining or condensing some of this? And those would be the 2 dates that we could bring those back. But just quickly in the meantime, those goal revisions, if you have suggestions for them, can be directed to me. So there's my email there, and I will reach out as well. And we will bring those back at the next council meeting once we have your direction. So I leave that up, and thank you.
Colleagues, I don't see anybody buzzing in, so if you're having technology problems. One thing that I would just ask as they are punching in is, how do these goals align with what's most important to our residents? How does that, I'll just start with Ward 1. How do the residents of Ward 1 feel about what we're setting? Are we addressing what's really important to them? I mean, I hear from many of our residents, here's what's important to me: lighting, potholes. It's those kinds of things. How are we able to effectively address those things that are super important to the people that we serve? Just a very general comment. Okay, now we do have people who would like to speak. Vice Mayor.
Brianna, thank you so much for the presentation. I just want to start with a couple of items. First of all, Bakersfield or Kern County has really become ground zero with certain attacks, especially with our economic cornerstones, which have historically been ag and oil. And Sacramento, at least the legislation that's come out of Sacramento, hasn't always been in our favor and is trending against us on a regular basis with different legislation. Out of the top 14 cities on a document I just saw of lobbyists, Bakersfield's the only one that doesn't have a state lobbyist within Sacramento. Again, that's the other top 14 cities, except us, do. And I think it's extremely important that we have that presence and representation in the state, that we have a seat at the table when those discussions come. I know we have our local state representatives, but a lobbyist is there day in and day out and can assist staff with that. The second item would be, and I've had communications with the city attorney regarding this, we used to have the old community prosecutions unit that assisted with quality of life crimes. Now with Measure End and 100 new officers proposed to come on, that is potentially thousands of new cases that are going to be headed over to the DA's office. So I'm going to ask the city attorney when she comes to make her presentation that if you just touch on the community prosecutions unit, kind of historically what it's done, and if any recommendations for bringing that back, or some other method that we could support the DA's office to ensure that those cases are processed properly, and ensuring that again, the quality of life issues are maintained within the city of Bakersfield. Thank you.
Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. So when you teed it up there, I thought I was going to get an opportunity to tell you what I thought. I think to answer your question, I think he asked a really good question about how these goals reflect the interest and priorities of our constituents. And I don't know that I could tell you that they necessarily do in every instance. In fact, and I'm sure other council members will talk about this, but some of these are so esoteric, it's actually a little bit hard. I think it's hard to measure. And so, and actually this is an item I brought up before, and it seems to have fallen by the wayside or never really heard much of anything. But this idea of participatory budgeting and further involving the community in our goals and how we prioritize things, I think is something we should make a concerted effort on, and I think we should make it a priority, because I don't know that, we have elections and we certainly get calls from constituents, and priorities are defined then, and we have we now have a process transpiring as a part of Measure N, which is convoluted at best, and I think there are real opportunities for us to maybe get a better pulse on what folks are actually thinking. So I'd like to ask staff to respond to that request I made several months ago on this idea of participatory budgeting and prioritizing, because it's happened in other cities. I think it's been very successful. I'd point to Fresno and San Jose, which have done it. I think it gives the community a little bit more ownership over their tax dollars, and I like that idea. The other item I'd like to highlight a little bit more is in goal number 7, related to fiscal solvency. Is it 7? It is, right? Yeah, goal number 7. I actually think we should, and I think it's an item that perhaps I think the oversight committees or some of the members have talked about it, but there's nothing in here that really talks about how we're setting aside dollars in some version of a rainy day fund. So I understand we set aside money, which I think is a good thing to help meet our PERS obligations over the next few years, but there's nothing in here that specifically states we're also setting aside money every year and building a fund for general purpose dollars that is there in the event that we ever need it. And I think, to Councilmember Parlier's point, this state is going in the opposite direction. It's going in a direction that doesn't do us a whole lot of good. And so I think we stand to, in one foul swoop, in one legislative session, we could have, entire industries wiped out, and that would affect us greatly, I think. So I like the idea of making it a goal to further engage the state. I think that's important, and I think as a part of that, because of what's happening, I think we should spend a little bit more time and energy in creating a rainy day fund or some type of reserve as well, that's not tied to PERS or something else. And I think those are my thoughts for now. Thank you.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. So the way I understand it, currently we're being asked what the preference is for this council in terms of the format of the future goals document. Is that correct?
It could be format. It could also be content. I think
Okay.
that's really up to your full council.
Got it. Okay. So with regard to format, my preference is that we go ahead and refresh the whole goals document, given the fact that it's a new environment for the city of Bakersfield. I've reviewed this current document, and it has goals, initiatives, and targeted actions. And my question has been, how do we sequence those initiatives and targeted actions? Are they prioritized? And if so, who's prioritizing those initiatives? I mean, we have a lot of initiatives and targeted actions that are documented in this document. And who is making that decision in terms of what really is priority. As we look at the new format of the document, I'd like to make a few suggestions that we really focus in on those measurable outcomes and how do we, how does this council hear from staff in terms of what the progress has been, and those initiatives or targeted actions that haven't been addressed, why not? And at what point will we address those things? So we have some sort of a dynamic document that we can continue to monitor on a regular basis. I think that'll help us really structure our work. The other item I'd like to address is with regard to the completed goals, and those goals I believe are really important. You know, one of the best things I like to do all day long is check things off my to-do list. And there's a feeling of accomplishment in that. So I would suggest that we develop some sort of space, whether it be a document or a web page, where we list out those past achievements so we don't lose those things, and we could communicate to the greater public, you know, our progress. Councilmember Rivera brought up participatory budgeting. I really like that idea. The main reason is that it provides a feedback loop. Certainly, you know, I for one, I know my colleagues are always out in the community listening to residents, engaging, hearing concerns, and it's important to do that. But I think it would be really helpful to have a formal mechanism through which we receive feedback on a regular basis. And so whether that be participatory budgeting workshops or input sessions to hear from the community regarding our established goals or soon to be established goals, I think it would be important for us to adopt a mechanism so that we hear from the community. Thank you.
Just following up on Councilmember Gonzalez's comment about measurable goals. We tend to talk a lot about activities, and certainly, Ms. Carrier, in the report that you gave, a lot of wonderful activities. What are the impacts of those activities? How do we really measure how we're doing in the community? Not just a list of stuff that we've done. And so, you know, when you look at goals and objectives, those are called outputs. That's just activity. But what we really want to know is the outcome. What's it actually doing for our community? What's it doing for our constituents? How is it changing our community? So thinking more in terms of the outcomes versus just a listing of the outputs. And then also just sometimes when we're hearing numbers, it's hard for me to understand the context. So we've done X number of this. How does that compare to the past over time, and perhaps in relationship to the population, also just the number of people that we have? So there's just a better context. We're really good about this when we're asking the council for money. This is how, or maybe like what we did in Measure In. Here is what we used to have. Here's how our population has changed. Here's what we need. When we're doing our goals going forward, or when you're coming to the council to ask if you can help us better understand the context, that is really helpful also. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Brian. I have found the existing system productive over the years, and as myself and other council members have made suggestions and new implementations and new goals, that staff has worked on those and came back with, you know, successful results. It does seem to get a little long and burdensome over the years, but you said staff recommended the refresh. Do you really have what you perceive it to look like if it's a refreshed new type of document?
Councilmember Smith, through the mayor, we don't yet, because we wanted to gauge the interest of the council on whether you preferred the process we go through in the document that we produce, or whether you agreed that maybe it needs to be looked at and refreshed. And I heard a comment that maybe having a separate document that archives our achievements, and so we don't lose track of that, may be a way to achieve that, so that we're not bogging down the existing document with a lot of additional information that may already be past tense. So that would certainly be something that could influence us in how we come back with a refreshed document. So if that is the desire of the council, we would put our heads together at staff and think about how to best present that, and then come back with something probably the second meeting in May.
Thank you. I guess my request would be that, again, each council member has focus in different things that they want to move forward, and I would hate to see, simplify the document to such an extent where those things get lost somewhere. Just like Councilmember Rivera mentioned, something that he had requested 6 months ago and no follow-up. And so it seems that when it's in the goals, then it's easier for us to point out and say, what are we doing on this? Where's this moving? So I wouldn't want to lose that as we refresh and streamline, I guess. And then the other comment I have is the water. From the water department, we work a lot on getting water in the river, and it makes a better city in a lot of ways, and of course long-term sustainability with water, and so that definitely needs to be a goal, and I'm glad it's there. Thank you.
Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Brianna. I struggled with this goals, objectives for over 30 years, and we almost get into semantics, and sometimes it gets hard. But one of the things that worked for me was to arrive at what we would call overriding goals. And if you had 6, or maybe there's 10 overriding goals, there may be 1 or 2 about public safety. It's so important. There might be 1 about transportation, but when we get an overriding goal, then you can give us, your 10 actions to support that overriding goal. And then we get into the specifics that, we're going to complete the bike path to Enos Lane. Do we get into your actions that support the overriding goals? And so we have something concrete, because you have to build a work plan to support the goals. But we first have to kind of get these overriding goals worked out, and then you can build your work plan for it. I heard in the Measure In, and I heard when I was campaigning, the number 1 goal was crime reduction. We need an overriding goal about reducing crime in our community. It's a pretty simple concept. The chief has to come up with, A, B, C, D, E action plans of what he's going to do, which give him a work plan. They also give us the ability to say, well, you're going to get this done by April. Well, did we get it done? But it becomes a work plan to support the goals. That makes this whole thing a lot easier for the departments. If they say, the council gave us these overriding goals, and here's our action plan to support and get those goals done. I heard about economic development. There wasn't much in here. The community wants job creation. They're loud and clear when you talk to them, when they agreed to vote for Measure In. They want programs that can support job creation to make it easier to do business here, retain our businesses, and attract businesses. Well, we need an overriding goal about that, and then the departments can build, these are the actions we're going to take concretely to get that done. The same thing, we heard 3 people on the Oversight Committee talk about a reserve fund. 3. They're right. We can't go through what we went through before. We have mass layoffs, we cut services if we get a big hiccup in the economy. I suggested to a lot of people, including Mr. Tandy, that if everybody knows their family needs 6 months of savings. Your parents taught you that. We have 1. We can't operate a city like that. We should build a program for 6 months of savings. I've talked to city manager. I know you can't do it all this year, because that'd probably be $130 million. But we could do it over 5 years. We now have all this new money. I think my analogy was, well, we won the lottery. We better put some money in the bank before we go buy a boat. So we don't try to have gee, how can we spend all this money? That's not really the goal. Fiscal stability was a big goal. We need a program for it. But it's an overriding principle, because I know we can't do it all the first year. People talked about the image of the community as a big reason. Our parks and our parkways are probably more important than our parks, because they're what everybody sees driving through town, and we look horrible. There's no description, but horrible, to drive down Ming Avenue all the way with a blacktop medium. to go down, what is it, New Stein, all the way down, and we're a block. I mean, it's embarrassing. Clean up our parkways, plan them, look like a real town. These things to attract people to want to live here. So they're our parks obviously need maintenance and improvement. These are overriding goals. We can't do it all in 1 year, but those are the kind of things that I was hearing. So we might have, I mean, I certainly don't need more than a dozen, but we need to get away from goals in the past sounded like a job description. That isn't what a goal is. So, but if we make it broad enough, the council gives you a broad direction, but you do the programs to make it happen, because we can't micromanage you. But you can bring us back something and say, yeah, that's good, and maybe it is improve Tarina Park, or maybe, there's a concrete action. Maybe it is put the new PA system, I think, in for the police. Yep, there's get it done by X date. It's actually easier for you, like one of the councilmen said, it's nice to be able to know, hey, I got this stuff done. It actually, people like to feel productive. I had that goal, I got it done on time. Everybody feels better about it, and we have something to show the community that, hey, here's the goal set, and the staff's actually getting this stuff done. It just, the whole thing feels better when we do it that way. So those are my comments. I think we do the new goals format, because I think council needs to come up with whatever it is, 5 or 10 overriding goals, and then you can build your action plans that we can buy off on. But then it gets concrete, and I think that's easier for you. Thank you.
In keeping with the overriding goal, the one issue that our city manager has mentioned that takes up more staff time than anything, and I think we all get calls daily, is homelessness. We hear that on a regular basis. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So once the goals and deliverables updates are made, if staff could come maybe quarterly with just a one-sheet goal matrix that is delivered similarly to the trip report, that we have that regular update, so we know instead of coming back, every 2 years or on a big item such as Measure N, and try and come up with those goals and ideas that, again, every quarter that we look at them and we have an idea where we are at, in line with Councilman Freeman's statements, have those overarching goals maybe up top and the lesser goals at the bottom, but again, something we can look at on the matrix and have an idea readily available. Thank you.
And Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor.
Where do you push the...
So I think in listening to, so I agree with everything that's been said, and I agree, especially with Councilmember Gonzalez's point. I love crossing things off lists, but I actually think since we're asking for input on formatting, I actually think the format of this document kind of does us a disservice, because it's not a good tracker. So if I could also maybe offer some formatting input, I might suggest, and you just heard the word matrix from our vice mayor, and I think that's a good direction to go in, but I kind of wrote out here, and I love Excel documents because I think they're much better for tracking things, but none of these items really have due dates. I'd like a formatted document that includes a specific due date. I'd like a formatted document that includes who the lead is, so what agency is charged with carrying out this particular goal, and if it's multiple agencies, then what are those departments or agencies? What's the expected impact or result listed there in that table? And then you've heard this specific goal and overarching goal concept as well, which I think is important. I think that list should reflect that as well. But I think that would help us in tracking things better, because I think, as Councilmember Smith said, we're at I think it's 15 pages worth of goals, but and then additional stuff. But we're getting to a pretty big list here, and it's hard. I mean, I was just reading through it, and some of the things are things, heck, I forgot about, to be honest. And that's our list should be better at tracking things and crossing things off. So that'd be a formatting suggestion.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, very nice presentation. And I think it's wonderful that we're able to redo our goals, evaluate. And what you brought up, Mayor, that how do the goals pertain to our individual areas. And so we'll be thinking, of course, in terms of our wards and then also the city as a whole. And it's appreciate, once again, to mention how wonderful that we do now have some funding to work with. And so Measure N is certainly very important to our city, just to keep up with the standards that we expect our city to have. But it'll be a good time, and it'll be a good time. And I know we'll all work together and put the money in and reevaluate and do what's going to be best in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mr. Telia.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm hearing a clear direction and preference from the council members from the comments. The document does need to be refreshed, and we will certainly do that. What would be helpful is during the next few weeks, if you could provide some information to Brianna and to anybody on staff about overarching goals, things that you want us to focus on when we're crafting that new format. I certainly heard specific examples from Councilmember Rivera and Councilmember Freeman, but that's exactly the type of feedback we would like to have over the course of the next several weeks. So unless there's any objections, that's how staff will proceed in developing a refreshed document to come back at the second meeting in May. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you need anything further? Thank you. Okay, so to Ms. Carrier with our suggestions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Closed session item 4A, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. We have two items. Number one, City of Bakersfield versus Citizens Business Bank. And item two, Robert Mitchell versus Ronnie Jeffries, John Bishop, Fnu Sherman, and City of Bakersfield, USDC.
Motion to adjourn to closed session.
We're adjourned to closed session. And if we have any students here from CSUB or BC, we will come back here at 5:15 for our next meeting. This is a very short portion typically and probably doesn't get you enough of credit. So relax for a while and come back at 5:15. Thanks.